home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him again!
Sixers.
Bang! It's good! Ball game!
And Flyers.
Tipped in front of the net!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program? Yeah.
97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
Now, live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a happy hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. It's streaming live on YouTube and X. Just follow at 973 ESPN. At least for one day, if you're watching on YouTube and X, we broke out the Phillies shirt. For one day only. I don't know if we will ever see that version of the Phillies again or if it was a one-off. But you know what? It was fun for one night at the Field of Dreams game. What an awesome night for baseball. You know, I got a lot of thoughts on the game last night. Not just on the game, but the presentation thereof. So we're going to get into that here on the show. Josh Hennig with a happy hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash. We got a big lineup coming up today on the show. Former NFL safety Nick Ferguson, he went to social media today and was putting out some thoughts and perspectives, some of the stuff that I was saying yesterday on the Sports Bash. So we're going to get to that coming up on the show about Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback. Plus, we do have Bob Wankel, of course, from the Phightin Words podcast, the Phillies podcast he does with Anthony DiFilippo. So we're going to get into a lot of Phillies conversation with him at 3 p.m. Also, Mike McGarry's moving to 4:30 p.m. We're going to do some moving of the furniture today, but we're getting it done here on 97.3 ESPN. Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City coming up at 4:30. We still have football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam Caplan will join us to get into Eagles preseason game number 1. Also, Oscar Budejen is back for Phillies Fastball at 5 p.m. today. So we got plenty of Phillies coverage as well as Eagles talk. And the White Horse RV text board is open for all of you at 609-403-0973. White Horse RV Centers in Williamstown and Galloway. Your RV adventure starts here at White Horse RV. Of course, you can, as always, comment on the YouTube and X stream at 973 ESPN. All right. Now they got all the particulars out of the way. I have so many thoughts on the Phillies game last night. Let's start with the presentation. I have been one of the people who has been hyper critical, aggressively critical of the job, or shall I say, the lack of a job that Netflix has done when it comes to baseball. And I feel like some of this might be more for like a, sports broadcast podcast, like with a Jimmy Trainer or Andrew Marchand. But so I'm not going to go too deep into it. But I've had a ton of issues with the Netflix broadcast presentation for their first two baseball, the opening night with the Giants game and then the home run derby. Last night was the first time I felt like I actually watched a baseball game on Netflix. So kudos to them for improving. I still think that the broadcast team is extremely clunky and discombobulated. I'm not a fan of the Hunter Pence, CC Sabathia with Matt Vasgersian broadcast. And frankly, I could make the argument that maybe if Brandon Marsh wasn't distracted by Hunter Pence yapping his ear off, he might have been able to get to that home run ball that went over the fence. And maybe, just maybe, Aaron Nola doesn't have to give up another home run in a game. But as we all expected, Aaron Nola gives up a home run. It's clockwork, right? But aside from that, last night was a vintage Nola performance. It was absolutely incredible to see Aaron Nola turn back the clock. It might be only for one game. It might be the only start that he has the rest of the year where he looks that efficient. But for one night only, right? It's kind of like the old presentation. Only one night. This performer is on deck. Well, for one night only, Aaron Nola gave you the Aaron Nola that got all that money. When you paired Aaron Nola, that massive contract, almost $150 million, you were paying him for nights like last night. 9 strikeouts, 1 earned run allowed. And I don't even care he went 5 innings. Because I need you to at least give me something. And he gave you something good. And in recent starts, Aaron Nola has looked a lot better, right? In recent starts, Aaron Nola has been a much, at least more dependable pitcher, we'll call it, right? I don't even want to say he's good. I'll just say dependable. Because this is now 4 of his last 5 starts. He has allowed 3 runs or less in every start. Also, in all 4 of those starts, he has gone at least 5 innings. So this is the Nola that you paid all that money to. And if you go back to July 1st, he has really only had 2 bad starts in his last 8. So again, if this is the Aaron Nola I am going to get moving forward for the rest of August into October, I feel a lot better about the state of my pitching staff, and I have a little bit less stress, because if Andrew Painter and Aaron Nola can become, again, not great pitchers, dependable, reliable, guys that I'm not stressed about, the Phillies' odds of reaching the postseason gets a lot better. And it's not just cutting down on the runs allowed. It's also the strikeouts. Aaron Nola with 9 strikeouts last night, 8 in his last start. He's now working the hitters. He's getting the corners. He's basically working the plate. And overall, 5 of his last 8 starts, he has at least 6 strikeouts, which is also important because in order for Aaron Nola to be effective, the threat of the strikeout has to be there. I don't need him to strike out multiple guys every inning, but if he's averaging at least a strikeout per inning and he's going 5 to 6 innings, now I got a guy who is in the back of the hitter's mind, because now the hitter knows he could strike me out. When you have a pitcher on the mound, and I've heard guys talk about this who are former ball players, they even mentioned it a little bit last night in the broadcast. Hunter Pence did. When you have a pitcher who is striking guys out, the threat of the hitter knowing the strikeout could be coming is definitely a problem. So, first of all, vintage Aaron Nola outing last night. That was exciting. And as I said, right now, after last night's game, the Phillies don't play tonight, which is annoying. But after last night's game, the Phillies are now solidly in the number 3 spot in the wild card. They're a half a game behind the Padres. They're too far behind the Cubs to catch them. So I don't expect them to get the number 1 wild card spot. But they're right there at the Padres. They're a half a game ahead of the Diamondbacks, 2.5 ahead of the Marlins. If Aaron Nola can continue to give you 5 to 6 innings a night only allowing 2 to 3 earned runs a night, you should win a majority of those games. The same thing for Painter. If you can get 5 innings a night out of him, if you can get a guy who's going to go out there and give you a quality start every night, it makes that NL wildcard pursuit a lot more reasonable to believe it could happen. What was the most surprising about last night was, where was this offense for 2 weeks? All of a sudden, you got 12 hits. And it started with Schwarber hitting that home run to start the game. The Phillies are a team that is such a boom or bust team that when they do score runs, it's like unexpected. And I understand this is the 3rd time they have scored 7 runs in the last 12 days. But at the same time, you've lost a lot of those games over the last 12 days. Just in the month of August, just a month, I'm not even going back to July. I'm not even going back to the fiasco with the Marlins series or the Yankees series or the Dodgers series. Let's just put all that aside. Let's say the calendar flipped and now you're in August. You got 8 wins in August. You also have 5 losses. 2 of those losses coming in extra innings. Another 2 of those losses, you couldn't score more than 1 run. So the erratic element of the Phillies is still there. But maybe, just maybe, if the Phillies can bottle whatever happened last night, whatever magic was at the Field of Dreams game, whatever energy was in the air, if they could put that in a bottle and take it with them for the rest of the series in Minnesota and for the rest of the month when they got to play the Marlins again, they got to play the Cardinals again, then they got to travel to the West Coast to end the month in Seattle, in Anaheim. If they can take what we saw last night and carry it for the rest of the month, this is absolutely a playoff team. What I saw last night, again, it might be one night only, but for one night only, I loved what I saw from the Philadelphia Phillies. I saw a team that was unafraid to swing the bat. And Schwarber looked like he was dialed in last night. Your top 3 hitters had 4 of your 12 hits last night. And if you add in Arias, that right there is 7 of your team's 12 hits. That is what's supposed to happen. Your top hitters are supposed to be responsible and accountable for the majority of your offense. Now, I understand they did get Bryce Harper off of his feet last night, bringing Derek Hill, which was a nice moment, by the way. Derek Hill himself from the state of Iowa, so him playing in the Field of Dreams game was probably an exciting moment for him. It's just a shame he never got to see the plate. No at-bats for Derek Hill, but he got to be in the outfield. The only guy, the only guy who didn't get a hit last night, who had an at-bat, was JT Realmuto, which frankly nobody's surprised about because we're all so perplexed why the Phillies paid him $15 million to come back. But still, everyone contributed to the game last night in some capacity. I mean, Trey Turner even walked last night. That was a miracle. I thought I was seeing things. Trey Turner not strike out and get a walk. I mean, that was impressive. So overall, the Phillies gave you some good vibes last night. But how are you guys feeling after the game last night? Were the good vibes enough for you to get back on the Phillies bandwagon, or is this just a one-night only affair? The White Horse RV text board is open at 609-403-0973. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on a Happy Hour Friday edition. I got some Happy Hour Friday picks for you a little bit later in the show. And we're going to dig deeper into this with Bob Wankel coming up at 3 p.m. Phillies Fastball presented by Ventnor Social at 5 p.m. with Oscar Budejen. We'll get into this more a little bit later. But I do genuinely believe that this Phillies team just loves to just pull us back in, right? It's the Godfather line, Al Pacino. Every time I think about, they pull me back in. So, okay, I'll be coerced to wear my Phillies shirt again for one more day this month. Now, what does that mean for the team moving forward? That's what I'm asking you guys. Is one game enough to get you excited? Is one game enough to help bring you back onto the bandwagon? No game for the Phillies tonight. Saturday, Jesus Luzardo. Sunday, Andrew Painter. So it'll be interesting to see what the Phillies do this weekend in Minnesota. And then you come home for Sanchez, Wheeler, Nola, day off next Thursday before the Cardinals series. So you got a little run of games here. Over the next 5, can Philadelphia at least win 3 of the 5? To me, that's what'll get me more invested. But for one night, they looked great. And for Kyle Schwarber, he looks like he finally came out of his funk fully. Now, Ryan, watching on the YouTube stream, he asked an interesting question at 973 ESPN. Ryan says they played the game at Citizens Bank Park last night. It's a good question. Do you have what was it, the magic and the aura and the energy of the Field of Dreams field, or was it the Phillies finally getting out of their funk? Because I'm starting to wonder if this team, it's almost like they needed to get away. You know, that homestand, it was rough, man. It was a weird homestand because you beat the Nats for 2 games, then you lose in extra innings. You win the series versus the Nationals, the 4-game set, then you lose on Chase Utley night, and then the next night to the Blue Jays. So the Phillies have had a weird stretch. And I think, Ryan, it's a fair question to ask. If that was at CBP instead of the Field of Dreams, because Ryan goes on to say on this YouTube stream, he says it's one game. This team is still atrocious. And listen, that's the question I'm asking. What do we do? Is it just one night only? Is it like the Toby Keith song, I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm good once as I'll ever be? Is that what we're talking about here? It certainly could be. I think that I am not going to get too high or too low on this team anymore. And I still hold to the question that we talked about yesterday here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 973 ESPN. To use Ryan's words, atrocious. This team has played such an atrociously inconsistent style of baseball that if they don't get the train back on the tracks, if they can't find a level of consistency, I'm telling everybody right now, when that calendar turns from August to September and football is back in full force on your TV, people are going to forget about the Phillies because of what Ryan is saying right there. To again, use the word atrocious. They have given you a style of baseball that frankly is frustrating. I can't get on board with a team that one night looks great, but the previous night looked like the worst team in baseball. Remember, they won 7-1 last night. The night before, they lost 7-1. So they went from one extreme to another. The guy who has been arguably, if not your best pitcher, one of your best pitchers, struggles in St. Louis the night before, and the guy who has been your most frustrating pitcher of the year has his best start of the year last night. The pendulum swing is just too wild with this Phillies team to get too excited. So I totally understand where Ryan is coming from. All right, we'll get to more of your messages throughout the show. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Plus, we have the YouTube stream where Ryan was chiming in at 973 ESPN on YouTube and X. Also, this hour, we got to get to the Eagles because I was talking yesterday about that. Dan Orlovsky says it's absolutely outrageous that everyone's overreacting to the Jalen Hurts practice interception video. Well, former NFL safety Nick Ferguson, he went on his own rant on social media last night. So that's why I reached out to him and see if he can come on the show today. Because he was talking about how no one's talking about all the interceptions that a Josh Allen is throwing in his training camp, but everyone's overreacting to one video of Jalen Hurts. So we'll get into with Nick. Why is it Jalen Hurts is basically disrespected the way he is? And that's the word I'm going to use with it, because I was saying this yesterday. I'll say it again here. I think what Evan Cohen said a month ago on Unsportsmanlike, heard from 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on 97.3 ESPN, is absolutely correct. Jalen Hurts is the most disrespected quarterback in all of football. No one I can think of in the NFL is more of a Rodney Dangerfield figure than Jalen Hurts. The guy has done everything that we demand our quarterbacks to do. He's gotten his team to the biggest game of the year. He has won a Super Bowl. He's got his team to the postseason every single year he has been a starter in the NFL. But yet, people still act like he is a bum. And while he has done more in the department of winning than a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson, he has done more in the department of winning than almost every quarterback in the NFL. Why is it this guy is still looked down upon? Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN FM. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Merrill Reese, Mike Quick calling all the action. Eagles versus Ravens here in your home for Eagles football in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. And the Sports Bash is being brought to you by Yuri's Waterfront Restaurant and the Boathouse Restaurant at the foot of the bridge in Wildwood. The seafood extraordinary, the value tremendous, the sunsets on the house. Yuri's Waterfront Restaurant and the Boathouse Restaurant. Such a great place, such amazing food. I know the guys had an amazing time there. Phillies lost the other day, but it was still a great place to be watching the Phillies. If you're going to watch the Phillies lose, why not watch it with a place that's got great seafood, great TVs, and more? Or if you want to watch the Eagles preseason game tomorrow night, I'm sure Yuri's will have it on their TVs as well. Experience the best of the Jersey Shore at Yuri's and the Boathouse at the foot of the Wildwood Boulevard Bridge. You just go to exit 4, go down Rio Grande Avenue. It converts into Wildwood Boulevard, and then you're right there in Wildwood. Can't miss it. Coming up next, 10-year NFL safety Nick Ferguson. He talks to us about the Jalen Hurts conundrum. Next, Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube and X. Just follow at 973 ESPN.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Town Square Media has teamed up with Seize the Deal for incredible offers from some fantastic local businesses. Get this great deal right now. Get a $50 gift card for just $25 from Mamma Mia's Ristorante, serving authentic Italian dishes made from scratch for over 40 years. With locations in Marmora and Egg Harbor Township, where every meal feels like home. That's a $50 Mamma Mia's gift card for just $25. Get this great deal right now at seizethedeal.com.
SeizeTheDeal.com.
Big prizes, big celebration, and 2 chances to win at Bridgeton Auto Mall. Purchase any new or pre-owned vehicle during August and September for your chance to win $20,000 cash. Or bring your vehicle in for qualifying service and you could win $5,000 cash. Then join us Saturday, October 3rd for our grand prize celebration featuring a barbecue food truck, live DJ, family fun, and the cash drawings beginning at 1 p.m. 808 North Pearl Street, Bridgeton, or visit BridgetonAutomall.com. No purchase necessary. See dealer for complete rules and details.
Surprise.
Wait, do I know you?
You use your Discover Cashback card to earn 5% cashback on restaurants all quarter.
Yeah.
Now, it's payback time.
Whoa, hold on.
Go ahead.
Oh, you mean my Discover Cashback.
I told you there'd be payback.
You know, you have a weird way of delivering good news.
I'm working on that.
Activate and earn 5% cash back at different categories each quarter on up to $1,500 in purchases.
Terms apply. See discover.com/5 for details.
2:30 on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on Happy Hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN. You won't see Jalen Hurts play tomorrow when the Eagles take on the Ravens. Of course, you hear Mel Reese and Mike Quick call all the action for the backups fighting for jobs here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 6. But still, the conversation around Jalen Hurts, it's getting wild. So we're going to ask somebody who played in the NFL for a decade. Nick Ferguson, the Broncos, the Texans. We've had him on the show before here talking about the Broncos, but he put out a very interesting video talking about the video of Jalen Hurts throwing the interception at practice that has gotten everyone losing their minds. And Nick Ferguson joins us right now here on 97.3 ESPN. Nick, welcome back. We know you're back. That means football season's here. How's it going?
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad to see football is back, and hopefully the Philly fans are as excited as I am. I mean, football is back. Exactly.
And I loved your video you posted last night, so I had to reach out to you because we were just having this conversation yesterday about, you have a guy in Jalen Hurts. This guy has all of the check marks on the resume, but yet one video goes online of him throwing an interception in practice, and the whole world acts like the guy's a bum.
You know what? That's the frustrating part about it, is because not every quarterback is treated as fairly as some others. And for some reason, there's just this overly amount of disdain for Jalen Hurts and his ability. But I try to remind people, okay, well, he's been to the Super Bowl twice. And then the first time he played against the Iron Man and Superman and Patrick Mahomes, he outdueled him. Had the Eagles won that game, Jalen Hurts is the MVP of the Super Bowl. But they come back and they repeat it, he wins. But there's just a lot of this negative vitriol for this guy. And watching the video, I'm trying to explain it to people like, this is practice. This is not a game. This is practice. And I think Allen Iverson famously said it. And it is absolutely true. But this is where you want to make your mistakes, in practice. But on that particular play, from my standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, Quinyon Mitchell made a great play. Like, Hollywood Brown needed to bring that dig route in just a little more because Jalen Hurts was throwing to a spot. He wasn't throwing to a man. And maybe that has a lot to do with their lack of chemistry at this point. But I think Jalen Hurts, man, he's been unfairly judged. And we're talking about by fans, some Philly fans, some out-of-market fans. But here's where it's so much disheartening for me. Seeing former players who played the game just as well as I played it, they're criticizing him as too. And they're saying, well, the Eagles social media team did a poor job because they highlighted something negative about the quarterback. No, they're not. There's two sides of the ball. They just highlighted the fact that the defense actually made a play. And I'm like, why can you not do that? Right? And once again, and I posted it in my video at Nick Ferguson _25. I talked about Josh Allen. He started off their practice with 4 INTs. No, there was no video, but it happened. But no one is saying anything negative about Josh Allen, but the criticism is overwhelming when it comes to Jalen Hurts, and I just don't get it.
So from your experience, you look around the NFL, right? Hurts has done things that Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, you throw in whatever quarterback you want to. These guys haven't done it. So what do you think it is about Jalen that gets people so off their rocker? Because, Nick, you've probably seen the same things I have on different shows, different platforms, where these people, it's like Jalen Hurts could cure the world of cancer, and they still complain about him.
Yeah, they are, because I'll boil it down to something really simple as it's just hate. Even Cam Newton, who's been to the Super Bowl himself, he has criticized Jalen Hurts as well. And I think it's a little hatred that Jalen Hurts' numbers may be a little better than his as far as rushing touchdowns, as far as getting to Super Bowls, actually winning a Super Bowl. So there's a lot of negativity dispute in the direction of Jalen Hurts because everyone wanted him to fail. Because when you go from Alabama, you're replaced by Tua Tagovailoa, and then you have to go to Oklahoma and then really prove yourself. Everyone was thinking, okay, well, he's not a top quarterback. All he has done since he's been in the league is lead that team. And I'll say this, I don't subscribe to this idea that the teams win Super Bowls solely based on their quarterback. No, this is a team sport. It's not freaking golf. Everyone is required to do their part. The addition of Saquon Barkley absolutely helps him, just like any quarterback. If you have a great run game, like Josh Allen has James Cook, right? No one's complaining about that, but they go hand in hand. And oh, by the way, the defense as well. But there's a lot of haters of Jalen Hurts that started when he was in college. Now they're on the transition to him being in the pros, but he's a hell of a quarterback in my book.
Talking with Nick Ferguson, 10-year NFL safety with the Broncos and the Texans, among others, joining us here on 97.3 ESPN, as he mentioned, at Nick Ferguson _25 on the X platform. Nick, when you talk about what Jalen Hurts has done, I'm glad you mentioned the college part, because, you know, one of the things that we've had a conversation this offseason about, I want to get your perspective as a player, right? You know, I never played in the NFL, okay? So, you know, I don't know. But in my perspective, I thought one of the biggest highlights of the offseason was when Jalen Hurts was at Oklahoma, he was a runner-up for the Heisman. Lincoln Riley, who was his coach there, spent the month of May with Hurts, with Sean Mannion, helping with the transition of the installation of this new offense. As a player, is that a big deal to have that level of collaboration in the offseason?
It is so vital and so important. And keep this in mind, when we look at Jalen Hurts and his time with the Eagles, he's had 6 offensive coordinators. Sean Mannion is taking over for Patullo, who I thought didn't do a great job. He didn't really set the offense up or Jalen Hurts, but that's besides the point. But it is so important that the offensive coordinator and the quarterback are on the same page. But there's a guy that never really gets talked about that is just as important as the OC. That's the quarterback coach, because that guy works lockstep with that quarterback every single day. That quarterback coach is in the room with the quarterback. So it pays to be on the same page, but also, too, as an OC to say, hey, listen, I don't care about the fact of how many places I've run this particular system. It's about the quarterback. What does the quarterback need from me to help him out? Even if that means that you have to change some of the play calls. And we've seen, you know, play calls, because Sean Payton when he gives a call, it is long as hell. So the idea is that if you have to reduce the play call to allow your quarterback to be able to get it out and disseminate it to everyone else in the huddle so they can execute it, to me, that's what you want to do. So it's all about doing what you need to do. If you're saying, well, we're sold on this particular guy, and it seems like the Eagles are sold on Jalen Hurts, you do everything within your power to make sure that you highlight him. And I know most people are saying, well, his numbers are not going to be that great because A.J. Brown is no longer in the building. I like to think that Jalen Hurts is going to take this as a challenge, because he's heard so many people talk about him since his college days, what he cannot do, that he's willing to prove what he can do.
And I think one of the things, I'm glad you put it that way, what he can do, because this is a guy who did win the Super Bowl MVP. He was the runner-up for the NFL MVP a couple of years ago. And this is and I know Jalen Hurts, he's a very monotone guy. You know, he vocally doesn't get excited, but he has said this offseason, Nick, he is excited about this offense, that he is in Sean Mannion's hip pocket trying to get better. It sounds like to me that we got a motivated guy. And, you know, I had this conversation with Hollis Thomas a couple of weeks ago, the former Eagle, Nick. Hollis talked about the fact that when a man looks as focused as Jalen is, you can't underestimate him.
No, you can't. And once again, that's the great thing about playing this sport. There are going to be people who are going to be on your side, and there are going to be a large amount of people who are going to be totally against you. At the end of the day, you have to think about what you're capable of doing and how you have gotten to the point where you are being a professional athlete, and allow those negative words, those negative sayings, the clippings, people talking about you on the radio or television, allow that to be somewhat of a motivator to kind of get you going. And I know the idea is that you shouldn't listen to the naysayers, and no one should be able to get you going. But I tell you what, the greatest part of success is making people choke on their words. And Jalen Hurts has done a phenomenal job of doing just that. And it just troubles me to see how many people are so against him. And they don't look at other quarterbacks the same way they judge him, because once again, you get a viral video about practice. We're not talking about a game, we're talking about practice. And that's where you want to make your mistakes. So when you get in the game, the chemistry is better between you and your skilled players.
Couple more for Nick Ferguson, of course, 10-year NFL safety, now covering the Broncos for Broncos Radio, joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. You know, during the time Vic Fangio was in Denver, it didn't work out for him as a head coach. But, Nick, he has been absolutely phenomenal as a DC here in Philadelphia. And there's a lot of people who are talking about how good this Eagles defense can be. We know that Fangio has said that, you know, Hurts looked great in practice, but the defense is trying to throw everything in the kitchen sink at him. You know, what is your perspective of Philadelphia heading into this season? Last year was a disappointment. Can they do it again, make a deep playoff run this year?
Yeah, I think they can, because once again, you have, you know, Saquon Barkley, you know, running the ball. You have Jalen Hurts. You have Devontae Smith. And then you talk about Vic Fangio and the defense. And one thing that happens in this league a lot, quarterbacks are propped up on this pedestal, and everyone talks about the quarterback, but all the supporting cast, the ensemble, they don't get a lot of credit, because you have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to stop the run. You have to be able to create turnovers, and you have to be able to flip those turnovers into points. That makes you a dangerous team. And Philly, known as though they got a taste of what that feels like, not once, but twice. So I would like to think that they definitely want to get back to it. Yeah, you have some departures on the defensive side of the ball, but you have Davis, you have Carter. I mean, you got two guys up front that can really be problematic and be disruptive for opposing offenses. So those guys can get back to where they were a couple of years ago when that defense was just, I mean, dominating, killing so many people. Now that means extra possessions for your offense. So yes, I truly believe. And once again, I'm saying this, and I'm not a Philly fan. I mean, I didn't play for the Eagles, but I'm saying this being a person who watches football and loves football, that the Eagles team, they have the capabilities of surprising a lot of people. And yes, last year, you said it. Last year wasn't a great year for them statistically, not how they wanted. So now they have a new offensive coordinator. Jalen Hurts is going to be really inspired, because when you look at some of the rankings, and even though the ESPN rankings, when you talk about executives, you know, ranking the quarterbacks, he wasn't that high. I think they had him at 5. He's so much better than that, because a lot of those guys on that list, Josh Allen being number 1, when was the last time Josh Allen was in the Super Bowl? I'll wait for it. He hasn't. He hasn't been in the Super Bowl. So Jalen Hurts has what it takes to put Philadelphia Eagles where they need to be. And I truly believe that he can do that.
Nick, before I let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Broncos, because I think the biggest question coming into this year in a stacked AFC West is Bo Nix. I would argue that if Bo Nix was healthy in that championship game, the Broncos would have been in the Super Bowl instead of the Patriots. So what are realistic expectations for the return of Bo Nix for Denver this year?
The idea is that running back. I know that's not a word that Sean Payton wants to use around here, but that's exactly what you did. You made a couple of tweaks to the roster here, adding some young upstarts, and you bring back J.K. Dobbins. But, yeah, that's the theory around here, that if Bo Nix didn't hurt his ankle against Buffalo, yeah, it's Sam Darnold and Bo Nix in the Super Bowl. And that's the mindset that you definitely have to have. And I'll tell you this, the defense for the past 2 seasons has led the NFL in sacks, and they're thirsty for more. Like last year, they had 63. They're hoping to break the single-season sack record. So if they do that, once again, defense giving way to the offense, more possessions for Bo Nix, and the Broncos could be in the Super Bowl.
Wouldn't it be cool if it was a Broncos-Eagles Super Bowl?
Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
I mean, there might not be no points scored in that game, though. That's the only problem.
Right. Oh, yes. Football gods, if you're listening, can we make that happen? Can we make that happen?
Remember when the Patriots and Rams played years ago and there was just like no points for like the first 3 quarters?
Wasn't that game was like, what, 13-3 or something like that?
So like 13-3, 14-3. Edelman only won MVP because he had the only score of the game.
Yes. See, look, really quickly, unlike most people who love to see a lot of points, right? They want to see the offense run up points. No, a great game for me is a score that's like a baseball score, like 9-3.
Yeah.
I love those types of games.
Absolutely. Now, of course, listen, we're a little biased. I played safety when I was in high school. So for me, it's like, I want to see a good defensive hit. I want to see some good defensive action. So I'm with you there, Nick. All right.
Well, there it is. But once again, football gods, if you're listening, I got my fingers crossed. I'm knocking on wood. Can we get the Denver Broncos and the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl?
He is Nick Ferguson. Of course, you can check him out on the X platform, Nick Ferguson _25 for all of his NFL coverage, 10-year NFL safety. And he joined us right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Nick, great stuff today.
All right, man. Enjoy the games.
Great stuff there from Nick Ferguson joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a happy hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up next, it'll be our Golic Minute of the Day, and we're having more food conversation. And when I heard this morning, I got to tell you guys, I was surprised at the answers that were given by the Golics. The Golic Minute coming up also 15 minutes from now. Bob Wankel for the Fighting Words podcast will join us here with me on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube next at 973 ESPN.
The Birds are back. Catch Philadelphia Eagles preseason football as the Eagles get ready for the 2026 season. Traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens tomorrow night. Pre-game coverage starts at 6 with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick calling all the action starting at 7.
The catch is made by Henry, and he is just bounced down by Cooper Budejen.
What a great tackle by Cooper Budejen.
This is South Jersey's radio home of the Philadelphia Eagles. 97.3 ESPN.
Hey, Mom, now that I have an after-school job, I think I want to buy a drum kit.
Okay, Rockstar. Let's look at your account.
When kids start making money, Chase has easy-to-use tools and expert bankers to help them learn how to manage it.
And next month, I'll buy the bass drum and the cymbals. Oh, and maybe some noise-canceling headphones for you.
Aw, you've thought of everything.
Help kids save, budget, and build financial independence, all with Chase. That's good for kids and good for parents. Visit your local Chase branch and get started.
Account subject to approval. J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC.
It's a really big deal at JCPenney. This weekend only, $299 natural or lab-grown diamond and gold jewelry and watches. Luxury pieces, exceptional value. Yes, JCPenney. Valid 8/14/8/16. Exclusions apply. See stores or jcp.com for details.
Get your game on at the Fanatic Sportsbook in the gallery at Ocean Casino Resort. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanac.com.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
What do you got atop your favorite junk food? Who you got?
Oatmeal cream pie.
Wow, that easy.
Yeah. And if you go to the gas station, they have the double-decker oatmeal cream pie. Which, I mean, listen, I'm type 2 diabetic. I shouldn't have it, but I do.
What a great start to this.
It is especially good on a road trip.
I think the Reese's suite of products is the answer for me. I've maintained the Reese's Fast Break Bar. If you're in a gas station on a road trip looking for something to grab, it's the best bang for your buck. It's the best Reese's product, I think. But I want to give a brief nod in the junk food department to Oreo.
That's our Golic Minute today. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, I got to be honest with you guys. When they gave those answers, I was shocked. When I think of junk food, I'm not thinking of Reese's or Oreos or like a oatmeal cream, whatever that is he talked about. And by the way, going to a gas station for something is always a dangerous proposition. Unless it's like a mainstream product, I'm playing this song on purpose. I am superstitious about gas station food. I've had way too many bad experiences with food at the local mart, wherever you're traveling in the United States. Now, when it comes to junk food, I love oatmeal raisin cookies. But does that qualify as junk food? I'm a huge popcorn guy. I am borderline obsessed with getting popcorn, going to a movie, getting the free refill size bag of popcorn, and going to town while I watch the movie. I love myself some nachos. But I don't know where does sweets fall into the junk food category? Because to me, it's like a separate category. You guys let me know what you think. The Wales RB text board is open, 609-403-0973. Coming up on the other side. The Phillies for one night to fill the dreams. Is it a sign of things to come or a one-night only affair? Well, that's Bob Wankel from the Fighting Words podcast next on 97.3.
Get your game on at the Fanatic Sportsbook in the gallery at Ocean Casino Resort. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Go for the win. For more information, visit theoceanac.com.
South Jersey's official play-by-play home of the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers.
At 0 point would I ever consider not being a fan of the team.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
3 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on 97.3 ESPN. Phillies, they looked good for one night. Is it a sign of things to come, or is it a one night only? Co-host of the Fighting Words Phillies podcast is the one only Bob Wankel, and he joins us. He is back here on the Sports Bash. Not a Mike and Bob Phillies conversation on Friday. It's a Josh and Bob Phillies conversation, which means it'll probably be a lot more passionate and vitriolic about the Phillies at this point here on 97.3 ESPN. Bob, welcome back. How you doing today?
What's up, Josh? How are you, man?
I'm doing good. You know, I made the comment before you came on that, you know, the Phillies last night reminded me of the Toby Keith song. I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm good once as I'll ever be. I feel like that's what we saw a little bit of last night. I mean, that might be the best start Aaron Nola's had in about 3 years. And then all of a sudden they just scored 7 runs and their bullpen actually looked good. Like what a weird state. You lose 7-1 on Wednesday and then you win 7-1 in front of Corn last night.
Yeah, that's the 2026 Philadelphia Phillies, Josh. You know, it's easy to kind of get seduced by these guys. They show you what they're capable of, and you're starting to get some better performances out of Aaron Nola, as you noted, and Andrew Painter's looked okay since coming back up. And you think about these 3 starting pitchers right now. If you go to a lot of sports books, there's only 7 starting pitchers that you can bet on out of the National League to win the NL Cy Young, and the Phillies have 3 of them. And you look at Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper and the names, and you say, like, these guys, they're as dangerous as anybody if they can get to October. But I just think that when you step back and look at it, you see the inconsistencies. You see how brutal this bullpen is, last night notwithstanding. And they have a lot of holes. And look, you know, they're going through it a little bit right now. I expect them to recover. I think they're a little bit better than this. But it's probably going to be a pretty good sweat all the way up to the finish line here, and certainly if they get into the playoffs.
You know, you mentioned about Aaron Nola's recent starts. He has pitched well recently, aside from the one start where he gave up the 6 runs a few starts ago. If this is the Nola you can get, right, 5 to 6 innings, 2 to 3 runs allowed, they should probably win a majority of those games, you would think, except for we're talking about the Phillies offense, right, Bob?
Yeah, well, his last 4 starts, he's got a 2.91 ERA. So he has been much better. He's not getting you really deep into games. He didn't get you terribly deep last night either, but he's giving you a chance to win. And when you start talking about number 4, number 5 type starters, that's really what you're looking for. And I know who he is and his contract situation and what he commands in terms of salary. You want more than that, but I think the reality is where he's at in his career, he's not going to be that mid-rotation arm. So I think Aaron Nola has sort of stabilized his season a little bit. He is giving them an opportunity to win, and if he can continue to do this more often than not, I think that sets the Phillies up pretty well. Obviously, the primary concern here is they're riding Sanchez and Wheeler and Luzardo, and you know Sanchez has been a little bit uneven for about 2 months now. Zach Wheeler had been so good, but his last 4 times out, you know, there's been some rain, there's been disruptions, delays. He got, he had a bad start in Miami. And you look up, all of a sudden, they've lost 4 of his last 5 starts. And in his last 4 starts, he's only gone 15 innings. He's got an ERA over 7. Like, the Zach Wheeler thing has to kind of get figured out here, or the Aaron Nola and Andrew Painter improvement doesn't really matter.
By the way, you ready to make you laugh a little bit, because I was listening to you on the Fighting Words this morning. It looks like the Field of Dreams game next year will not be on Netflix. It'll be on NBC. Shocking to nobody, right?
Yeah, they. I'm sure NBC will do a nice job with it. The Netflix thing. I mean, from an aesthetic standpoint, it looked awesome, right? Like that venue just plays so well on TV. That game plays so well on TV. I didn't have a lot of good things to say about the broadcast in general.
I got to tell you, I thought that, and this is going to sound, a little weird, but I think Netflix has gotten better with each one of these broadcasts in terms of like making it a real broadcast. Like the first one with the Giants was an abomination. And then the home run derby was kind of functional, kind of dysfunctional. And then last night, I at least didn't want to like turn the TV off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that one of their issues that they sort of run into, obviously they're bringing in professionals from all over the place and they throw them all together for these broadcasts. They don't get to really, build. It's not a night after night after night experience where they can kind of learn from their mistakes. They have to wait 2-3 months before they put on another production. But I thought they took a step in the right direction. There was no Burt Kreischer last night pregame throwing out pitches shirtless. And so I think that was a win.
I think part of that is also because baseball told them this is about the Field of Dreams, not about your celebrities on Netflix. By the way, is it just me? 'Cause maybe I wasn't online enough last night, so maybe it's my bad. But was I the only one who thought that Brandon Marsh would have caught that if they weren't talking to him?
Yeah, I actually saw a couple people say the same thing. Look, if you want to go deep into the broadcast notes here, I can't stand miking up players. So that was the latest example of that. So that added fuel to that fire for me. But yeah, he looked a little bit, I would say distracted, I guess would be a fair way to characterize it.
I love how he said twice, it was out of my reach. Like he kept trying to assure them, no, I could have caught it anyway.
Yeah, I think he's just being too nice, to be honest with you.
Well, part of it is because of the fact that him and Pence were having a bromance that are on the broadcast.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw after the game, too, the thing with the corn. Anthony Rizzo came out. and
I did watch that. Yeah, that was awkward as all.
That was awkward, but it got even worse when you went beyond that. And it was Barry Bonds trying to talk to Aaron Nola, who, look, Aaron Nola's a great guy. We've had him on our show before. But, man, he's not going to give you a whole heck of a lot sitting in a seat on a panel post-game. It's just probably not the right guy to tab for that.
Well, also, the other thing is, you just described two individuals who are extremely different individuals. Like Aaron Nola is he's got that Southern, good old boy, he just kind of relaxed. And Barry Bonds is just this over the top eccentric personality, larger than life individual. And it's what do Barry Bonds and Aaron Nola even have to talk about on a general base? They're at least with Rizzo and Schwarber, their former teammates.
Yeah, there was absolutely no chemistry on that set. It was pretty painful to watch. It really was.
But back to the actual game. Bob Wankel joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Do we take anything from Schwarber's 2 homers last night? Could this be, an igniter for him for the rest of the month?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he went through it a little bit there from a power perspective, and he was still getting on base. He was still drawing his walks, but I think that you can talk about what they did at the deadline, what they failed to do at the deadline. And often I think it's an oversimplification to say, hey, the team's only going to go as far as player X takes them. But in the case of the Phillies, if Kyle Schwarber is not the consistent power threat that you expect him to be, none of this really works. And you saw that offense sputter out of the gate. And you saw the Phillies sputter out of the gate in the following the All-Star break, just because they were really missing that level of power production from him. But he hits the 2 home runs on Sunday. He gets another 2 last night, and you kind of hope that he's found his footing here going down the stretch. Because he has to. Unfortunately, they have so many deficiencies that Kyle Schwarber just hitting 250 and working walks and doing his thing and contributing that way, it's not enough. He has to be a difference maker from a power perspective.
When you think about it, because you just mentioned the word difference maker, and I think that kind of trumped what I was going to ask you, because if Kyle Schwarber was not on this team, would this team even be a playoff team? The wild inconsistency of the 2 through 9, right? Outside of Schwarber, that dude literally has saved this team the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, even with what he's been able to do, they still lead Major League Baseball in scoring 1 run or fewer. I mean, they've done it almost 30 times, and it's the middle of August. I mean, I know you look at wins above replacement, and you can't say that a player is worth 7 or 8 wins, but it's really hard to imagine right now this team being over 500, frankly, without Kyle Schwarber in this lineup. I also think that there's something to be said for that if you were not here from a leadership perspective. I think that this is a clubhouse, though it's a veteran clubhouse. It's one that's been tested several times this year. They underwent a managerial change a month into the season. They've had their highs, but they've played very poor baseball for long stretches. And, knowing what I know, having covered Kyle Schwarber, knowing who he is as a person and how important he is in that clubhouse, if you were to remove him from that, I'm not so sure that the Phillies ever really recover. They hit a softer spot in the schedule when the calendar turned to May. They got back into it, but I just don't know that this team would have ever ascended the way it did to even climb back in and hold down the playoff spot the way it has from pretty much the majority of the past 2.5 months if he weren't here. So to answer your question, I mean, no, I don't think they're a playoff team without him.
You just mentioned about the veteran clubhouse, and you made a point that I really would like you to take some time to expound upon, because I was listening on my drive to the Fighting Words pod this morning, and you were talking about the Mattingly dynamic with this team. And you talked about how, there might be a dysfunctional relationship between him and Harper, about the fact that he might be the worst in terms of managing manager for this team in years. And it's like, I feel like that's something we haven't talked about enough because, this guy was a failure with the Dodgers, and then they brought in Dave Roberts, and then they won a championship, right? It's not like Mattingly is like this, manager, even Joe Girardi at least did something as a manager before he got to Philadelphia. I think it was like this presumption that, they won all these games when Mattingly took over, but couldn't you argue, Bob, that was more about the players realizing, oh, snap, they fired the guy we liked. We better get our heads out of the sand than it was just Don Mattingly being manager.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different layers to this. I mean, it's interesting. One of the things that people are most upset about is Luis Arraez hitting cleanup. I don't think that that's a Don Mattingly decision. I think that that's an organizational decision. I think that multiple people get together and construct those lineups. And so it's funny because that's one of the chief complaints about him in this moment. I also don't think that it's Don Mattingly's decision alone to wedge Alec Boehm into this lineup on a nightly basis. I think that the decision was made across the board, organization-wide, to have Bryce Harper go out to right field and line it up this way. So those are the things that he's taking a lot of heat for. But interestingly enough, I don't think that really has anything to do with him, and thus I'm not really criticizing him for those things. But what I see from a tactical standpoint with Don Mattingly, there have just been, it's a head scratcher after head scratcher. I know everybody was really excited to get Alex McFarland up here, and there's a real live arm there, and there's a lot of upside with him, and he could be a really interesting piece for a bullpen that desperately needs help going down the stretch. I don't blame Don Mattingly for taking Christopher Sanchez out on Wednesday or on Tuesday night after 6 innings. If Sanchez went to him, it was hot and humid, said, I don't have any more, and they mutually agreed that he was done, great, fine. But why Alex McFarland in a tie game, his second career appearance on the road in a scoreless game in the 7th inning? Just thought it was a weird spot for him. That's a head scratcher to me. We saw a situation over the weekend against the Blue Jays where Orion Kirkering was sputtering. He had absolutely nothing. Second and third, they have a lefty up to go after a lefty. They don't do it. It just doesn't. It feels like to me, I've seen more things from a tactical standpoint in real time that have made me scratch my head over the last 2 weeks than I saw in 4 years with Rob Thompson. And look, I know a lot of people were tired of Rob. We're very critical of Rob. And I think some of those complaints are warranted and valid. But I think Don Mattingly is maybe the worst tactical manager I've seen this team have, dating back to I would say Ryan Sandberg. I really do. And if anybody that's listening to me on this show or on my podcast over the last 10 years, I'm the first to kind of point out this is a players' league. The players ultimately dictate what happens. I'm not saying that Don Mattingly, if he were replaced by Alex Cora right now, the Phillies would be 20 games over 500. They have a lot of flaws, and he has to work around those flaws. But I don't think that Don Mattingly has been a net positive for this team from the dugout.
You just mentioned Ryan Sandberg, and I've heard you and Mike Gill have this conversation before about the whole just because you played the game doesn't make you a good manager, conversation. And I just got to wonder, with Dombrowski's background with Alex Cora, right? How much of this year is the Phillies, whether they want to admit it or not publicly, hey, Mattingly, just get us to the finish line and we'll move you back to being bench coach next year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, if they were to go on a deep playoff run, win the World Series, something along those lines, is there a world where Don Mattingly's back as the Phillies manager? I think it's possible. I mean, he did say, and it was kind of perplexing because he initially said he didn't want to be the manager of this team. They were having some success, though. They did one of those national broadcasts. He was asked about it and said, yeah, I would love to come back. I think that caught some people by surprise. I think a lot of this is get us through this, and then let's evaluate. Obviously, he has the relationship with his son, who's the general manager of the team. That's kind of interesting. But I think you just kind of let the dust settle on this season, and then you go to him and you say, like, look, do you want to be a part of this moving forward? We're likely going to move off of you as the manager, but if you wanted to come back and do the role that we initially brought you in here to do, we'd be open to that. You alluded to something I had said on my show, which is this dynamic between Bryce Harper and Don Mattingly. I found it very odd this week. Bryce talking about how being in the outfield has sort of exacerbated this knee soreness. And, they went to Don Mattingly about it. And he said, well, he goes to medical. He's cleared to play. We put him in the lineup, and if it's at a point where he's that uncomfortable, then we should probably sit him down for a bit. I just thought that was a weird response. It almost felt a little bit, to me anyway, it felt like a little bit combative, or like, well, I don't want to hear about Bryce's knee soreness. He just volunteered to go out to right field. Now, 10 days later, we have to listen to this. It just feels like there's a little bit of friction between Bryce and Don. And that also extends back to, obviously, Bryce's comments ahead of the trade deadline about needing help. And again, the manager could just say, that's a guy wanting to win and leave it at that. But, he's punched back a little bit, Mattingly. And I just wonder, I'm not saying it's a terrible relationship or that there's a major problem here looming between the two, but it definitely feels like there's a little bit of friction between those two.
And if there is friction, my mind goes back to how much of it is because Harper was playing first. Was there an element of, and I'm not saying this happened, I'm not reporting anything, okay, but, you know how it goes, Bob, right? Former player who played first base. Does the former first baseman Mattingly try to give Harper feedback? Harper doesn't take it very well, and Mattingly basically kind of has an up yours attitude toward that guy. And maybe that was part of the reason why Harper again reiterated, I'm willing to go to right field. Get me away from first base and away from this manager who wants to tell me how to do my job.
Hey, look, I think anything's possible. Certainly Don Mattingly should have been giving Bryce Harper some pointers and some hints about how to play first base from a defensive perspective this season, because Bryce was not very good at first base defensively this year. So, I don't know if Don had some feedback for him or had been critical of him at times. I guess that's not outside the realm of possibility.
Again, I'm not saying it happened. I'm just curious, was there, because, Harper did make the weird comment. Who's the infield coach? Bobby
Dickerson.
Like there's Harper made that weird comment, like, hey, now I get away from Bobby, like torturing me with these drills. Like, was there maybe a little more to this? Get me away from first base than maybe we realized?
I don't know, but I think that there's a world or a possibility where he went out to right field and realized also that this is not really where he should be. You're kind of having to hide Bryce Harper from a defensive perspective right now. And really that kind of goes back to what the Phillies are dealing here with Alec Bohm. I feel like we spent a lot of time on Alec Bohm, and in the grand scheme of things, he's probably like the 16th most important Philly, but really, I think that you could go down the list and say who's more important than Alec Bohm, but they have gone to great lengths to keep a very mediocre at best player in the lineup. And it does beg the question, if Bryce is going to continue to feel discomfort What are they going to do about that? If it's a thing where, some time passes and he develops a routine and everything kind of calms down, then great. But to me, it's a clear sign that Alec Bohm will have to continue to hit if he is to stay in this lineup. I just don't think that you can hide Alec Bohm much longer here.
By the way, speaking of first base, is there a possibility that maybe the answer is Schwarber at first and Harper at DH long term?
I don't think they want to do that. And I do think that Kyle Schwarber playing first base with any level of consistency would probably be a nightmare, to be honest with you.
More of a nightmare than Rhys Hoskins?
Maybe similar. And just because of the lack of reps, it would likely be worse. I just think that the range really becomes a factor. And getting balls that are in the hole, I think would be probably the biggest issue. And also, you're relying on Kyle Schwarber, like we talked about at the top of the segment, as being that key power source for this lineup, which often lacks it. And I just wouldn't really want to do anything to jeopardize Kyle Schwarber's health, given that if you remove him or his bat is deteriorated even by 25% or 20% because he has a nagging injury, it's over. I mean, it's all over.
Back to the Bohm part. I was listening to Dombrowski's conversation with John Heyman earlier this week, and Dombrowski said on Bob multiple times, I mean, not just once, he said multiple times how surprised he is how the offense has struggled this year, especially to start the year, how they struggled since the All-Star break. And I feel like, you, Bob, me, all of us watching a team, we're not surprised how much the offense has struggled. Is that really part of the problem here, that the Phillies organization is that delusional about who these players are, while the rest of us are living in reality and guys like Dombrowski are like, I'm still surprised about all this?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, look, I think that they knew what they were getting with JT Realmuto at this point in his career. I think they kind of did that out of necessity. And keep in mind, they weren't rushing to re-sign JT Realmuto. They had alternatives. They were looking to take that money and allocate it to Bichette, Bo Bichette. And they were obviously looking to replace Alec Bohm. They would have replaced that position with Bo Bichette. Like, there's an acknowledgement there that those two bats are not good enough, or certainly in the case of Realmuto, declining, and Bohm not good enough. I think that you have to act surprised when you hand a shortstop $27 million a year, and he, for most of the year, is one of the worst overall shortstops in all of baseball. That should be a surprise to you. Brandon Marsh, got off to a great start, has struggled here lately, homered last night. Like, it kind of is what he is. They should not be surprised by that. I think Justin Crawford has given them everything that you could reasonably expect from a rookie, that's trying to learn on the fly and comes in with some limitations in terms of power production. And I don't know if they were surprised or not by Adolis Garcia being a total zero in right field offensively, but certainly you and I and nobody else really was surprised by that. So I don't know where the overall general surprise comes from. This lineup was always going to be one that was certainly in decline. For the most part, they kind of are what they've been.
Bob, before I let you go, no Phillies tonight, which is absolutely hilarious because they finally win a game pretty well, and then they have a day off. Which is
refreshing, actually.
Yeah,
I would say embrace the night off.
What does Bob Wankel do when the Phillies are not on? Like, what are you watching?
Well, I think Tires, the Shane Gill show on Netflix, just dropped a new season, so we might dive into that a little bit. I got to get around to Ted Lasso still. I know that just came back. I think my wife wants to check that out, so probably catch up on some TV tonight, and maybe have a drink or five.
I mean, it is Happy Hour Friday. So
it is Happy Hour Friday, of course.
You can dive into that. Yeah. I will say I haven't started Tires yet because I'm trying to finish Abbott Elementary first before I move to another comedy show.
Yeah, I like Tires. I was a fan of the first season, so we'll see what happens as they run it back here.
Yeah, it's in my queue, so I'll let you know when I finally get to it. But I'm trying to. Yeah, I feel like I'm always. I don't know how it is for you, Bob, but I feel like I'm always behind on trying to catch up on shows. So it's like I have 20 different shows in the queue, and you're like, which one can I finish first?
Yeah, well, listen, I have a 3 and a 4-year-old, so there's a lot of Bluey and a lot of Disney Plus and a lot of the TV doesn't really free up that often. So when it does at night, it's typically the Phillies, and and we're usually in bed after that pretty quickly. So
yeah, exactly. At that point, you're just like, I don't even want to watch TV anymore.
Yeah. I have shows that are 4 or 5 years in the queue right now. So, I got a lot of catching up to do here at some point.
Oh, so you're as bad as me. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't have kids. So
it's good. So you're out living your life. You're doing things,
I'm attempting. My goal was to get tan this summer. I'm halfway there.
There you go.
He is Bob Wankel, of course. The Fighting Words Phillies podcast is where you catch him, and he joins us here on Fridays on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, Bob, why don't you go crack open one of those Happy Hour Friday drinks, okay?
I'm on my way, Josh.
Take care, my friend.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And, of course, the 3 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash is being brought to you by Broadleys Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Broadleys is your trusted source for air conditioning repairs, heating and plumbing service and installation for generations. Call them at 609-390-3907 or visit them online at broadleys.net. All right, we got a bunch of messages to get to. We have the text board at 609-403-0973. That is the White Horse RV text board. We also got a ton of comments coming in on the YouTube stream at 973 ESPN. So we'll get to all your messages coming up on the other side about the Phillies, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, and more. Josh Hennig, filling for Mike Gill on a Happy Hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash on 973 ESPN.
We have the Phillies covered.
Swing and a drive, right field, way back, forget it, out of here. Kyle Schwarber hammers one over the right field wall.
Get the best Phillies baseball coverage on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN.
Hey, Birds fans, it's about that time. Football season's back, and Boardwalk Honda is giving you the chance to score big. Stop in and take advantage of game-changing savings all month long. Shop their lineup of new, pre-owned, and certified pre-owned Hondas. They have something for everyone, and credit problems are no problem, with over 25 financial lenders to get you approved and on the road to victory. Visit them in Egg Harbor Township or online at boardwalkhonda.com.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/radio right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
This summer, the Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich and Pineapple Dragon Fruit and Sprite are back at Chick-fil-A.
Girl, it's back. We've been waiting. I love that honey pepper pimento sandwich.
And that pineapple dragon fruit and Sprite is everything. It's got that razzle-dazzle that makes you stop and say, okay, wait a minute.
I love the creaminess of the pimento cheese. It's savory. It's bold. It's flavorful.
Our faves are back. High five, girl.
Which fan favorite will you choose? Real customers paid for their testimonials.
Sound familiar? At Mattress Firm, we understand there are many problems that can keep you up at night, like snoring, aches and pains, or sleeping hot. Our sleep experts have the unrivaled know-how to match you with a mattress that can help. And now at Mattress Firm, save up to $700, plus get a free adjustable base with select Sealy Posturepedic mattresses. For the great sleep you deserve, visit Mattress Firm. We make sleep easy. Restrictions apply. See store or website for details.
And Doug.
Hot dog! Get your hot dog!
Customize and save with Liberty Mutual.
Hey, what are you doing?
I like your method. Direct, to the point. A little loud, but
Listen, people don't buy car insurance the same way they do hot dogs.
not yet. But both are customizable.
Popcorn! Get your popcorn!
Hey, this is a hot dog area.
And customize and save area. Get a quote at libertymutual.com or with your local agent.
Liberty, 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 liberty. Hey, Mom, now that I have an after-school job, I think I want to buy a drum kit.
Okay, Rockstar. Let's look at your account.
When kids start making money, Chase has easy-to-use tools and expert bankers to help them learn how to manage it.
And next month, I'll buy the bass drum and the cymbals. Oh, and maybe some noise-canceling headphones for you.
Aw, you've thought of everything.
Help kids save, budget, and build financial independence, all with Chase. That's good for kids and good for parents. Visit your local Chase branch and get started.
Account subject to approval. JP Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC.
This is the story of the one. The one who keeps multiple buildings running smoothly day after day. Plumbing that flows, HVAC that hums, cleaning supplies that keep surfaces sparkling. That's why she counts on Grainger. With easy reordering online and 24/7 support, Grainger helps her keep the products she needs on hand. So shelves stay stocked and buildings stay ready. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
With GMF financing to qualified buyers excludes Traverse and Corvette excludes prior sales.
Bennett Chevy's end of summer clear the lot sale is going on now. Selling new Chevys at the lowest prices you'll find anywhere. GM supplier employee prices. Plus, you keep all the rebates, saving you as much as 20%. Save even more with available 0% financing. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? Get a minimum $10,000 for your trade towards any pre-owned in stock. That's a minimum 10 grand. And our non-commissioned sales team is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. So you're never hassled or haggled, and you'll never feel any sales pressure. What other dealer makes you offers this good? New vehicles selling at the true GM supplier employee price, and you keep all the rebates, saving you up to 20%. Pre-owned buyers get a minimum $10,000 for your trade. Even if it doesn't run, you still get a minimum 10 grand for total junk. Together, let's drive during Bennett Chevrolet's end of summer clear the lot sale. Egg Harbor Township and BennettChevy.com.
You're listening with Mike Gill.
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
On 97.3 ESPN.
Brought to you by Broad Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Call 609-390-3907 or visit them online at broadleaf.net.
3:32 on the Sports Pass. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on a happy hour Friday edition of the show. Time to hear from all of you listening out there, whether you're listening on 97.3 ESPN FM on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973, or if you're watching on YouTube and X at 973 ESPN. We have plenty of comments and thoughts to get to here on the show. Don't forget still to come. We have the Unsportsmanlike Moment of the Day coming up in about 16 minutes from now. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast with Adam Caplan at the top of the next hour. Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City at 4:30. And Phillies basketball with Oscar Budejen coming up at 5 o'clock. All that and more to come. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a happy hour Friday edition on 97.3 ESPN. Just me, myself, and I am a army of one. Yesterday, today, and for the next several days, it's Mike Gill with his baseball team up at the Big Ruth Little League World Series or whatever they're calling it. I can't keep up with the actual names of this stuff, so I'm just going to say Mike Gill's team has a chance to win the World Series, and whatever the actual moniker or labeling is, you know, I don't know. It's like, you know, so I took my dad on one of my days off recently. For those who have noticed, I've taken a couple of, you know, solo days here and there, right? Just to try to get some downtime. I don't get to take vacations like everybody else does, right? So, you know, I get to take a day off here, a day off there. One of the days I wanted to take my dad to the movies, right? Have a day with my dad. So I take my dad to the movie. And, you know, there were a couple of, you know, after the movie, he kind of like was picking my brain about like, you know, hey, can you explain this and explain that? And it wasn't like crazy. It was more like a refresher course for him. And so I feel like sometimes when it comes to some other things, I am in the same boat. It's like, I don't really know what the exact name of all these youth events are. I don't have kids. I have friends who have kids. I know people who have kids in youth sports. I'm probably better equipped to go onto the field and coach the kids than I am equipped to actually like maneuver the minutia of what is AAU, what is rec league, what is Little League, Babe Ruth, like all that stuff is just I'm really perplexed by all that stuff. So I'm gonna stick to what I, which is reading these texts coming in. Like Phil and Brady chiming in the last hour at 609-403-0970. Great conversation we had with Nick Ferguson, former NFL safety, about Jalen Hurts. Phil and Brady says, I think a lot of the vitriol toward Jalen Hurts comes from some that have total dislike for the Eagles. People like Chris Candy in the morning have come around to some degree, but many national pundits can't stand the Eagles, Philly sports in general, and certainly our fans. Lots of Philly hate out there, in my opinion, says Phil and Brady. Phil, I totally hear what you're saying. You're right. There is a level of national dislike when it comes to Philly sports from certain pockets. But I find some of the hurt, vitriol, and hate comes from Philly fans too, Phil. I have seen them online who they just lose their mind over Hurts. I mean, there are some people who are chanting for Tanner McKee to play or a Gardner Minshew to play or anyone not named Jalen Hurts to play. There are people who just hate the guy. And I would say you're right. When it comes to the Chris Candys of the world who play for the Giants or people in the big picture media, they just don't like Philly sports and they don't like Nick Sirianni. And, I know Saquon Barkley, he was on what show was that? Let me see if I can find that audio cut. Was he on? He was on Up and Adams. And he talked about the disrespect that Philly gets and, kind of his perspective on it. I thought this was a very interesting take from Saquon Barkley on the Up and Adams show.
The same reason why Jalen don't get the respect he deserves. Same reason why when I rush for 2,000 yards, it may be looked at not as good as other 2,000 yards. It's just how it works when you're in Philly, because Nick and Howie and all of them, they do a really good job of creating a great culture and a winning culture and having great teams. And Nick would be the first one to tell you, what makes great coaches, great teams, and great players. And what makes a great running back, a great offensive line. What makes a great quarterback, a great offensive line, a great team, and a great offensive coordinator. Like, all those things matter. And, they change the narrative when it comes to winning, I guess you can say. You learn when you get in the NFL that, like, they just say whatever they want, but just because it's a narrative that's created out there doesn't mean it's the truth. And the narrative that's out there about Nick is so far from the truth.
And that's what it really comes down to. These narratives have such deep roots. These opinions that people have about Nick Sirianni or Jalen Hurts or whoever, it's not something that just happened. It's something that was dug deep, cultivated, just absolutely just ingrained. And these people just can't let go of it. And Mike Gill has made this comment before, and I'm not trying to quote it exactly because, I'm not going to speak for Mike Gill, but it's the idea that in some ways, the vitriol we see in sports that used to be a little more lighthearted, right? I grew up in a world where, there were rivalries. But the rivalries didn't cause you, the disagreements didn't cause you to want to, like, do evil to other people constantly. Like, yeah, there's a small group of people who are idiots and who let too much, they let their emotions get the hold of them, right? But the majority of people, like, if you went to high school and you went to school with somebody who moved to South Jersey, let's say from North Jersey, and they grew up their whole life a Mets and a Giants fan, you might debate, You might argue, you might get on each other's nerves, but there was never a point where like you wanted to do violence to them. I know that there was a guy I went to high school with. He was a New Jersey Devils fan. And shout out to Glenn, wherever you are out there. I went to high school with Glenn. And it was always just like, whenever it came up to hockey, he was a diehard Devils fan because of his family and yada, yada, yada. And it was like, Devils Flyers, like one of the biggest rivalries in the region. And we would get into it at times. We would have arguments, but like, we never hated each other. We would drag it out over maybe a drink or two down in Wildwood. And, we would go on for an hour. But when we got it out of our system, we would still be cool. We'd hang out. We were friendly. In today's world, it's like these disagreements are like, if you like Jalen Hurts, like they act like you're evil. Or if you are a Phillies fan and you like Bryce Harper, like the dark things that people will say to other people online, it's just over the top now. And the hate is just absolutely ridiculous. More text coming in. Glenn from Absecon chimes in at 609-403-0972. The narrative around Jalen Hurts is completely media created. He says Hurts isn't near the top of the list of concerns for the Eagles, according to the fans I talked to. Hurts has proven he has the goods to get it done. The media needs to not hate but appreciate. I will say, again, Glenn, I don't think it's fully media created. Because, again, I see pockets of Eagle fans online who, they just can't stand Jalen Hurts. They compare him to Trent Dilfer. They act like Hurts is a bum. They have this level of vitriol about the quarterback. And I think it comes from, if it's media created, Glenn and Absecon, if it's media created, then it's social media driven. Okay, how about I put it that way? If the idea was generated and created by people in the mainstream media, the national media, it's amplified and pushed down the line by segments of fans on social media. And I think it goes back to when Hurts was drafted, there were a lot of fans who didn't like him being drafted. He's not a guy that people can identify with, okay? He is not very personable. He's cold. He doesn't have an engaging personality. Like Saquon is much more of a man of a people than Jalen Hurts is. You look around at quarterbacks around the NFL, Josh Allen is beloved by Bill fans, but he's also kind of a bro, right? Lamar Jackson is beloved by Ravens fans because Lamar, and by the way, a lot of NFL fans, because Lamar is such a phenomenal, freakish talent. And he kind of comes off as, not too high on himself. He doesn't come off as a guy with this massive ego. Dak Prescott always talks about how he has to play better. He has to do better, blah, blah, blah. Really the only quarterbacks in the NFL who, aside from Jalen, who are looked at as like these unachievable, like unattainable, out of this world people are the guys who, like Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers comes off as aloof and kind of a know-it-all. I don't like that about him. Justin Bieber's, is he married or is he dating Madison Beers? I can't keep up with all these people, their relationships. But, the video that came out of her, petting his hair after a practice made the internet blow up. It's like, oh, here's a celebrity quarterback, right? That's usually the quarterback that people don't like. Jalen is everything you want him to be, but because he doesn't fit, like Pat Mahomes comes off as a dude you could maybe have hang out with a little bit, Joe Burrow seems like a bit of a bro. Josh Allen seems like a bit of a bro. Dak and Lamar seem like guys who you can, maybe have a conversation with, have fun with. Jalen doesn't come off as the guy that people want to hang out with. And so I think that's part of the reason why there is a disdain, shall I call it, for him. Over on the YouTube stream, we were talking about the Phillies earlier in the show. Ryan chimed in on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. This is the worst Phillies team in recent years. Too inconsistent. Guess what? They still don't hit. Haven't done it in 4 years later. Listen, I don't think the Phillies will win a World Series. So, I mean, if you want to say that the worst team in 4 years, sure. I feel like what we're doing is that when it comes to the Phillies, we're kind of splitting hairs here, because I feel like I can enjoy watching the Phillies for one night, but I don't have to enjoy it when they play tomorrow night, when I'm going to get mad and want to, throw the remote at the television and, say, where's the Eagles preseason game? Let me go watch Tanner McKee, Andy Dalton, and Colton Payton, rather than watch the Phillies swing and miss another bad pitch. So I feel like both can exist. What else we got here on the stream? Nick chimes in on the YouTube stream and says, Bone played well last night. I think he showed great strides and is back to his best. Clean up here of the future, I say. I hate disappointing Nick. I think I would be surprised if Alec Bohm is here past this year. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in Bohm's life. The whole issue with his parents, the very contentious arbitration case that got him the 1-year deal he's playing on now. Bohm just looks like a guy who wants to get away. And I don't know if the Phillies look at Bohm as a part of this team's future. I think the way Stott has played at third base, combined with the uncertainty about Trey Turner's positional future, and I think the one thing people forget about with Alec Bohm, this is a guy who was drafted, was the 3rd overall pick of the draft, I believe. And he's going to want to go to free agency and get a contract. It's not a coincidence that he fired Scott Boras in the middle of this legal dispute between him and his family. He originally switched to Boras years ago, hoping that Boras was going to help him, when he got to arbitration and free agency. And then he didn't, was basically no help. So he basically fired Boras this year and rehired his original agent, Nick Canick. So I don't know if Bohm's here long term. I think Bohm is going after this year. I think the Phillies are going to they're going to either pivot someone else to be a third baseman, because it might, and listen, you could argue that if Alex Bregman was here instead of Alec Bohm, this team would be 10 times better. So Bohm making strides hasn't been enough to make this team any better. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. And there's no Phillies games tonight. So even though there's no Phillies lineup, you still have the chance to win the $25 gift card to Chachi's 13th floor at Villa Raffici. We'll announce that later in the show. Don't forget, fantasy football season is here. So book your fantasy football league draft at Chachi's 13th floor above Villa Raffici in Absecon for just $20 per person. Your draft package includes great food, cold beer, and more, but only at Chachi's 13th floor, proud partner of 97.3 ESPN. And of course, you can win the gift card. The Phillies scored 13 runs, but because there's no Phillies games tonight, there's no lineup to give you. But still, check out Chachi's 13th floor for your fantasy football leagues. I know 97.3 ESPN is going to have our fantasy football league hosted at Chachi's 13th floor, and so should you. So go check them out at Chachi's 13th floor above Villa Raffici in Galloway. Of course, we are so happy to have them part of us with us here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up on the other side, more food talk with today's unsportsmanlike moment of the day on 97.3 ESPN.
With GMF financing to qualified buyers excludes Traverse and Corvette excludes prior sales.
Bennett Chevy's end of summer clear the lot sale is going on now. Selling new Chevys at the lowest prices you'll find anywhere. GM supplier employee prices. Plus, you keep all the rebates, saving you as much as 20%. Save even more with available 0% financing. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? Get a minimum $10,000 for your trade towards any pre-owned in stock. That's a minimum 10 grand. And our non-commissioned sales team is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. So you're never hassled or haggled, and you'll never feel any sales pressure. What other dealer makes you offers this good? New vehicles selling at the true GM supplier employee price, and you keep all the rebates, saving you up to 20%. Pre-owned buyers get a minimum $10,000 for your trade. Even if it doesn't run, you still get a minimum 10 grand for total junk. Together, let's drive during Bennett Chevrolet's end of summer clear the lot sale. Egg Harbor Township and BennettChevy.com.
Is there a problem if you go to a steakhouse and don't get steak?
It's weird. It's completely weird. I mean, I don't frown upon it, but I'm not going to eat it. But here's the thing. If you go to a steakhouse, not only do you not get steak, but you get seafood? That is strange.
It's great seafood at that place.
Yeah, that is strange.
So
get them both. Steak and seafood. Yeah, but you can do the surf and turf. That is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
But if you go to a steakhouse to order fish, that's just weird.
You go to a steakhouse and you're getting seafood, unless if you're having a version of meat, then why are you at the steakhouse to begin with anyway?
But they can also have great seafood.
It's like going to a sushi spot and getting a cheeseburger.
Or going to a Mexican restaurant ordering a hamburger.
Pat.
It's a great example, Pat.
No, it's not.
It's not a great example, and I'm with Evan Cohen on this. That's from on Sports Like This Morning, heard 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern on 97.3 ESPN. Listen, Freddie Coleman's one of my favorites of all time. The man is a legend, incredible human being. But him and Cansey are wrong on this. Here's why. Because if you go to a great steakhouse, and I don't mean the mainstream ones that have like they basically process the meat, 24/7. It's barely cooked before you get it. I mean like a local great steakhouse, okay? Here in South Jersey. Those steak restaurants, the good ones, will have off-the-boat seafood at the restaurant, okay? Now, listen, if you want to tune in tomorrow on Hanging with Hennig, I can tell you who those restaurants are because I'm not allowed to here on the Sports Bash. But there are local restaurants in South Jersey that offer both great steak and great seafood. So it is not weird to do that. Now, if you're in Iowa and the steakhouse has seafood, now I'm suspicious in the same way that I'm not getting my sushi from the gas station mart. Football at 4. Adam Caplan next on 97.3.
home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him. It's a sack.
Sixers.
Oh, baby.
And Flyers.
He scored!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Football at Forward, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Like and subscribe and download wherever you get your podcasts, and it's brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort and the Fanatics Sportsbook. Yes, the Fanatics Sportsbook and the Ocean Casinos Gallery Bar Booking Games is Ocean's go-to game day destinations with huge screens, great drinks, and all the sportsbook action you want, and the perfect place to catch every play, like the Eagles preseason game tomorrow night with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick calling all the action here in your home for Eagles football in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. So, how about the Eagles preseason game and their opponent is the Ravens? You know, there's some similarities here as Adam Caplan joins us because, Adam, the Eagles are not the only team with new coaches and new schemes going into the preseason. How you doing today, Adam?
Josh, welcome to the first football weekend. How about that, huh? How about that? First preseason weekend in the National Football League. So we're looking forward to this. So the Eagles will play at Baltimore, and the Eagles and Ravens have two first-time play callers in offense. The Ravens have Declan Doyle, the youngest offensive coordinator in the National Football League, along with David Blau, who I saw earlier this week with the Commanders. They're both going to run a West Coast offense. Declan Doyle brings in West Coast terminology. His background is with Sean Payton, and then he spent 1 year with Ben Johnson as Ben Johnson's non-play calling offensive coordinator with the Bears last season. So he's a young play caller. They've jumped. This is the crazy thing. For the first time in nearly 20 years, the Ravens will not carry a fullback. They're going to run actually more 11 personnel they've probably ever run. With Zay Flowers, who got his big contract, Tez Walker, third-year player out of North Carolina, Rashad Bateman, the off-injured but talented Rashad Bateman. Jacoby Lane, by the way, if you're into fantasy football, this is a guy you want in dynasty leagues. This kid's got a great camp. Tall kid out of USC who I watched earlier this week in Ravens camp, and he's going to play a lot. So when they play the Eagles, you're going to see a lot of Tez Walker. You're going to see a lot of Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt, a fourth-round receiver out of IU. So Eagles are going to see a lot of these guys, and Vic Fangio will be having a lot of his backups, as we know, on the field. But you're going to see a lot of these young receivers with Baltimore.
Now, you mentioned about how the Eagles are going to have some backup. So you just mentioned no fullback. Is there something particular you do want to see when there is more 11 personnel from the Ravens on the field versus the Eagles?
Yeah, now when they do that, Josh, here's what we're going to see. Mac McWilliams, who's coming on the last week and a half of camp, he now is their fourth corner. Over at Jacorian Bennett, you're going to see a lot of him. Ambry Thomas, Sean Wade, Dree Castro-Fields. Whoever's healthy out of that group is going to play, and they're going to play a lot. Because the Eagles are going to keep probably 5 corners. They won't keep 6, but they'll keep 5. Mac McWilliams, when they go to nickel, may play inside. He may play nickel. Jacorian Bennett is really a corner, not a nickel. And Ambry Thomas is a guy who, for a couple years, started for the 49ers. Too many injuries, but he's yet another ex-49er. One of these guys could push for that number 5 job. But the big one to me, Josh, is Jacorian Bennett, who they acquired last year in that trade for Thomas Booker, the D tackle. And Bennett is just he's not performed. Like last year, they made the trade late. He didn't get the scheme. He's had a full offseason, no more excuses. And that's a guy tomorrow night at 7:30. I'm looking forward to seeing if Jacorian Bennett could start taking charge of a role for this team.
Absolutely. No more excuses. It's time to put up or shut up for Bennett with the Eagles. Let's flip it to the other side. The Ravens also have a new scheme because Jesse Minter, the former Chargers, former University of Michigan, DC, he is now the head coach in Baltimore.
Yeah, Minter's going to run a 34. Boy, he's brilliant. He's with not a ton of talent with the Chargers. They had a great defense. Eagles did face them last year in Los Angeles, if you remember. So yeah, it's they won't have Nate Wiggins. Not that they would play their starters, but Nate Wiggins got hurt. I was there. He got hurt against Jacoby Lane, and thankfully the injury's not super serious. But what you're going to see there is Zion Young, their second-round edge rusher. This year, you're going to see him in this game. You're going to see TJ Tampa, who was a fourth-round corner 2 years ago in 2024. You're going to see a lot of him. Trent Simpson will probably have started inside backer in this game. You're going to see Rashawn Benny, who's now he got hurt. If he's healthy, he'll play in this game. He got hurt in the practice I was in. He played for Jesse Minter at Michigan. So you'll see guys like that. Mike Green, we'll see how much he plays. Who's a second-round edge rusher last year. Tavius Robinson, who's on the final year of his rookie deal. He was a fourth-rounder in 2023 out of Mississippi. So you're going to see some of those guys with this backup offensive line group and backup offense for the Eagles in this game.
Adam Caplan joining us, Course Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, like, subscribe, and download. Also, InsideTheBirds.com. We're looking ahead to Eagles preseason game number 1. Adam, for you, is there a particular bird that you're looking at who will get time tomorrow against this new scheme of Jesse Minter?
Yep, and it's going to be Tanner McKee, number 16. I am stunned that he has not won the job yet, where it's not obvious. It's definitely not obvious. Dalton and Tanner McKee are even. I'm disappointed that McKee is not. I'm just stunned that he has not taken a hold of this job. And of course, you will see Cole Payton late, but Tanner McKee needs to really take hold of this job, and he's got 3 preseason games to do it. He would be one. Markel Bell, number 72, their third-round pick out of University of Miami. Want to see how he plays this. He should be starting in this game. That'd be another guy. You know what I want to see do well at receiver is Hollywood Brown. I'd like to see Tanner McKee hit him on a downfield pass, because that's the one thing that's missing with this group. We're not seeing a lot of 9 routes, deep routes. I need to see more of that, Josh. We're just not. I don't know why he's number 0 when you watch the game tomorrow night. Darius Cooper's been phenomenal. He's been Wicks and Cooper have been terrific, by the way. Cooper lately, last week, he's been a little bit better than Wicks, and we'll see Darius Cooper, obviously, and seeing how in a starting role, I don't care that's against backups. I just want to see how he performs. It's too bad we're not going to see Mekhi Lemon, Josh. It's disappointing. They have to get him ready for the regular season, but he's really missing some important reps here.
Yeah, Andrew DeCecco was on with us, spoke very highly of Cooper yesterday for yesterday's Football at 4 here on 97.3 ESPN. Adam, speaking of the Eagles, so you mentioned about Tanner McKee. So what did the Eagles want to accomplish? I'm assuming they might want some clarity here on, is McKee going to take that step, or is Dalton going to lock down QB2?
Yeah, and with McKee here, we want to see him be decisive. Okay, that's one thing I didn't mention. Josh, he's got a great arm, way better than Dalton's, okay? But he's not playing with consistent timing. That's what we've seen with practice. It's just not. It surprises me because that's never been a problem for him. His mobility is not the problem. It has nothing to do with it. It's just we got to see more from him there. And then Tank Bixby's been phenomenal in camp. It's not like we need to learn any more from him. And then before we get to defense, Josh, some of these backup offensive linemen, we know already about Drew Kennel. Jake Majors has been a nice surprise, number 75. He could play guard or center. Willie Lampkin, cross-trained at guard lately and center. Let's see what he looks like in this game. Look, for the first time in like many years, Josh, they finally have some talented developmental backup offensive linemen.
Before we move to the defense, Adam, if I could just get some clarity on the McKee situation. For you, do you think McKee is having these struggles because it's a new offense, or do you think it might be something else?
It's a great question. The terminology's changed. They're going to the West Coast verbiage system. It's not the numbering system anymore. It's hard to know, Josh, but I could only go by what I see, what I'm told. He's just hesitating. This has never been him before, Josh. Hurts is obviously new for him too. He's been inconsistent, but better lately. And remember, Hurts is having to do this without Smith for almost 2 weeks and Lemon for almost all of training camp. So let's see what happens here, Josh, tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to seeing. And by the way, Tanner McKee's coming out party as a rookie was against these said Ravens, where he wasn't doing well in camp. And man, did he look good against them. We were kind of surprised because he didn't have the mobility he has now, but that's where that's where we saw it 4 years ago.
Adam, I was watching that game at a local establishment down here, McKee versus the Ravens 2 years ago. The number of people who were losing their minds watching that game. And I wasn't at a normal sports bar. I was at like a very more, summery establishment. The number of people who were talking about McKee at this summer bar was absolutely ridiculous 2 years ago.
We know why? Because he didn't do anything in training camp. This is I thought it was his rookie season, but I could be wrong when we saw this game, but I'm pretty certain it was. But it was one of these things you're like, I get it. It's against a bunch of backups. He's a third string quarterback, but arm strength is arm strength.
Yep.
And it was just wow. It was kind of wow. But he was so stiff moving in training camp. I was kind of skeptical, and then he took off. His second training camp was really good, and he's been good. But the struggle started for him in that Washington last Week 18 game. Josh, he did not play well. And they brought in Andy Dalton to compete against him. That's really real. I mean, there's no question. It's absolutely a competition.
Adam, flipping it over to the defense, one of the conversations we had with Andrew DeCecco yesterday was about the defense, because we know we're not going to see the main guys. You're not going to see a bunch of snaps for Carter or Jordan Davis or, Zach Bond. But who on defense needs to make a mark? You mentioned before Mac McWilliams and Jacorian Bennett, but who on the defensive front needs to do it?
No doubt about it. It's Ty Robinson. I know there are a lot of people in scouting that Jeff and I know who raved about this guy before the draft last year. And I'm not saying they're wrong yet. I mean, it's only his second year, but he's also not guaranteed to make the team. Howie Roseman has cut a fourth-round pick prior to his second season. That was Donnell Pumphrey, who, quite frankly, they could have cut year one. No one would have cared because he was awful for them. He actually wound up never playing it down in the National Football League. Ty Robinson is more talented than this, but he's very raw. Technique stuff was not good last summer. His preseason tape was not good at all. And he's just not pushing for anything. Byron Young is the top backup. That's not up to debate. I know people are bringing up UR Bernard. The Eagles won't play him until they think he's ready. Now, if he plays tomorrow night, they think he's ready and to at least get some snaps. But Ty Robinson is my guy for this entire game because Byron Young's on the final year of his rookie deal. And Mauro Joma's not got his extension yet. So they got to get Ty Robinson going here. No question about it.
Well, you mentioned guys way before. My mind goes back to Adam. Remember Davion Taylor? He was a third-round pick. And the Eagles cut him 2 years after drafting him.
Yeah. Well, he wound up going to the Cardinals. Gannon brought him in. He did special teams, and he's out of the league. That was a major reach. I remember after he was drafted, we told the truth. We go, wow, the word around this kid is that he's very raw from a processing standpoint. Should have gone in the sixth round, not the third. But he could run. But that was a total miss. Look, Howie. Prior to 21, Howie was a bottom half of the National Football League drafter. I mean, that's just the truth. It's not our job to take any side here. We just tell you what we know, what we see, and what we hear. Now he's a top five drafter. I can't explain it to you other than he started drafting in the SEC. I think that kind of helped him. Bama and Georgia, you think?
Yeah.
But you know what? The Quinion Mitchell pick was that's not a Power 5 school. To take a kid from Toledo, that was gutsy. Didn't play man coverage in college. Howie's an elite drafter now. Jalix Hunt's another one from not a power school.
Yes.
And he's great. We don't rip people. We tell the truth. We were very critical of him, rightfully so, but he's turned it around because he's a much better film watcher and he's just doing a much better job.
Yeah. That 2020 draft, aside from Jalen Hurts, ended up being
terrible.
Completely like one of the worst drafts of all time.
By the way, they drafted Hurts to be a backup.
Yes.
People ripped us for saying that, but then they told us, okay, you were right. They didn't draft. They drafted Hurts. Remember, they extended Wentz in June of 2019. They drafted Hurts in the second round in April of 2020. 10 months. Come on, folks. 10 months after, of course, they drafted Hurts as a backup. They didn't know that. They didn't know that Wentz would go in the tank, but it is what it is. And hey, you know what? If they didn't draft Hurts, who knows? They would have gotten all that draft wrong.
Absolutely.
So.
For more insights, of course, after Eagles preseason game number 1 and all of next week, make sure you check out the Inside the Birds podcast. Like, subscribe, and download wherever you get your podcasts. He's Adam Caplan, Caplan NFL on the X platform and on Instagram. Adam, great stuff today.
All right, man. Thank you.
Of course, you can hear Eagles Ravens tomorrow night right here on your home for Eagles football in all of South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. I'm excited for this preseason game because Adam kind of outlined some of it right there because, you know, these young guys, there's a lot of put up and shut up situations, especially on the defense. Let's get back to Ty Robinson for a minute. For those who don't remember, Ty Robinson, when they drafted him out of Nebraska, he was supposed to be like this diamond in the rough, right? He was a guy who had a really good college career, didn't test very well at the combine. So teams were wondering, you know, hey, maybe he's a better football speed guy than a training speed guy. And so the belief is that when you have a guy like Ty Robinson, he might be the next D tackle. Remember, that was the offseason. What's his name? Milton Williams left for the Patriots on that big contract. And so the idea was that they thought Ty Robinson was going to be part of the new depth chart. And then when they traded away Thomas Booker for Jacorian Bennett last season, the idea is that, hey, this is an opportunity for Ty Robinson to prove himself, to elevate. And he never did. It was Byron Young. It was Moro Ojomo. Another guy they found as a diamond in the rough, who's actually proven to be a legitimate find for Philadelphia. Ojomo was a guy who was not drafted very highly, but was very highly regarded in college. Now he's developed into the guy who replaced Milton Williams instead of Ty Robinson. So now Ty Robinson, he's got to go out there and prove that he has a future on this team because Philadelphia has a very, very, very difficult financial decision to make this offseason. Are they going to keep Ojomo or do they let him walk in free agency? This is a guy who's phenomenally talented, and you've already invested a ton of money into Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. You're not paying top dollar to keep Ojomo as well. So you better find out, is Ty Robinson part of the future depth of this team or not? Couple other things I'm looking at. I mentioned Jacorian Bennett, and so did Adam. Bennett was the guy who was supposed to become the new cornerback 2 for this team. And between injuries and his slow recognition of the defense, he couldn't pick it up. He has had an entire offseason now with no injuries, no health issues. And it's going to come down to basically him and Mac McWilliams, who is going to be the guy. And you heard Andrew DeCecco say yesterday, Mac McWilliams has popped at training camp. He has looked good. So I think that on defense, Jacorian Bennett, Mac McWilliams, Ty Robinson are 3 guys we are definitely all going to keep an eye on tomorrow in the preseason. Now, Angie and Tuckerton left a comment about the quarterbacks I think is interesting because I asked Adam, why is Tanner McKee struggling to reclaim, shall we call it, the QB2 spot? Angie Tuckerton brings up an interesting comment. She says, maybe they are saving those throws down the field to Brown because they're playing it too close to the vest. Kind of like Dotson's TD in the Super Bowl. They want to catch defenses off guard. And maybe that is part of the reason why McKee has struggled. I think it's an interesting point, Angie. I don't know if that's the exact reason, but I do think that with how well Darius Cooper and Dontavian Wicks have played in training camp, those shouldn't be deterrents for Tanner McKee to play well. And if we're saying that Tanner McKee needs the deep ball in order to be an effective backup quarterback, he ain't your backup quarterback. Because anyone who has watched the offenses that Sean Mannion is drawing from, Kevin O'Connell's offense with the Vikings, Matt LaFleur's offense with the Packers, Sean McVay's offense with the Rams, those are offenses that don't take a ton of deep shots. They take deep shots here and there. They make deep throws here and there. But it's more so to mix it up and catch the defense off guard. These offenses treat the deep ball like a pitcher, like a great fastball pitcher implements their breaking ball. Okay, you think about a guy like a Randy Johnson, right, back in the day, or you heard Roger Clemens on the Field of Dreams broadcast last night. These are guys who are known for their fastballs. But their fastball was so powerful and so dominant that when they threw a pitch that is not a fastball, for Randy Johnson, it was that sweeping slider. For Roger Clemens, it was that splitter, and it was that sinker. That was the change of pace pitch that got them a lot of strikeouts. In the West Coast offenses, the deep ball is the change of speed pitch. It's the off-speed pitch that is not the main go-to. So if Tanner McKee needs the deep ball in order to show his best skill, then he can't be the backup quarterback for this team. He just can't be that guy, because this offense requires you to have the timing throws, to have the intermediates, the slants, the digs, the crossers, the comeback routes, the ability to let the receivers pass each other in the quote-unquote rub routes and then hit the guy, bam, as soon as he comes out of that route. And you heard Nick Ferguson say it earlier in the broadcast about Jalen Hurts, the interception at training camp. Hurts was probably told to throw to a spot. The receiver did not get to the spot in time. Quinyon Mitchell read it and got the interception in practice. Tanner McKee is supposed to have elite arm strength. And if he is not able to put the ball where it needs to be, yeah, he can't be the backup quarterback. Not at all for the Philadelphia Eagles. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. We got more messages to get to on the text board at 609-403-0973. That is the White Horse RV text board number, as well as like Angie and Tuckerton. You could jump on the YouTube stream at 973 ESPN as well to join the conversation. But coming up on the other side, we'll get back to some baseball talk. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City joins us here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a happy hour edition of the Sports Bash.
As the Eagles get ready for the 2026 season, traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens tomorrow night. Pre-game coverage starts at 6 with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick calling all the action starting at 7.
The catch is made by Henry, and he is just bounced down by Cooper Budejen.
What a great tackle by Cooper Budejen.
This is South Jersey's radio home of the Philadelphia Eagles. 97.3 ESPN.
When it comes to your money, it pays to have a financial partner who puts you first. At Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union, you always get friendly, local service from people who know your name and understand your goals. Whether you need a new car, home improvements, or extra cash, check out their low-rate loans designed to help you save. Plus, competitive rates and convenient banking make managing your money easier. Stop by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union today or visit jerseyshorefcu.org. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
With the Sports Flash, I'm Tony Desiri, 97.3 ESPN. Major League Baseball, the Phillies in Dyersville, Iowa for the Field of Dreams game tonight, facing the Minnesota Twins. Aaron Nola getting the start in the Iowa cornfield. The first time Major League Baseball has been at the venue since 2022. Taj Bradley, he'll get the start for the Twins. Minnesota is the home team in tonight's game, as the series will head to Minnesota for resumption on Saturday. Also Saturday, the Philadelphia Eagles will play the Baltimore Ravens. It is preseason game number 1. Nick Sirianni is not committed to playing any of his starters in the opener, meaning that Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, and others may have the night off. It's the first preseason game under new offensive who replaced Kevin Patullo. NBA, the Sixers releasing their full 82-game schedule today. They will open up on October 20th, part of a triple header in New York against the Knicks. The sports update brought to you by Progressive. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow. Here comes the weekend. Tomorrow looks great. Sunday, less great, but not a washout. A stray shower still possible this evening, then clearing skies overnight. Low temperature 69 degrees. Tomorrow, beautiful summer day, mostly sunny and dry, warm and not that humid, high 83. Cloudier and cooler Sunday, high 79. Watch for midday showers, bigger push of rain likely Sunday night. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
Mike Gill on a happy hour Friday edition on 97.3 ESPN. You know, Mike's not here, so I actually get to pick the music coming in and out of these breaks. I haven't heard this song enough this summer, and I'm not saying that facetiously. I don't think I've heard Mike Gill play this song once in my entire life. So you know what? I'm going to play a little Summertime. You know it's summertime as well when the Phillies play great one night and horrible another. Yeah, they won 7-1 last night, but they lost 7-1 the night before. We'll get into it now with Mike McGarry from the Press Atlantic. He usually joins us at 2:30, but he is joining us today at 4:30. So 2 hours later, but the same guy, Mike McGarry here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Mike, welcome in. How you doing today?
Doing well, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing good. I wanted to start with, last night, the Phillies looked like basically vintage. Aaron Nola, probably his best start of the year. Kyle Schwarber, a couple home runs. All looked good last night. So for you, Mike, was last night a one-time only affair, or was it potentially a spark for things to come?
Well, for the Phillies' sake, it better be a spark of potentially of things to come, because right now they're kind of in a three-team battle for the last two playoff spots. And between them, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks, one of those teams isn't going to make it. It's going to stay home in October. So the Phillies had better hope that last night was a harbinger of things to come. I actually think the one thing, the biggest positive out of last night's game to me was the play of Brandon Marsh. He's kind of struggled since the All-Star break, really for about the week before the All-Star break through last night. He kind of struggled, but last night he looked like he had his mojo back. He hit his home run. He was running the bases aggressively. He looked like the Brandon Marsh that we saw earlier in the season that made him an All-Star. So I think if there's a positive for the Phillies to kind of build on and take out of the game last night, to me, it's the play of Brandon Marsh.
Even though he couldn't get that home run when he should have, he's talking 100 pence, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know if he could have caught that one, but he gave it a shot. I think if he can if he can get back to where he was earlier in the season, I think it would be a big boost for this lineup.
I definitely agree. He would be a big boost for the lineup. Aaron Nola, he has not pitched bad in recent weeks. He had the one rough start, but otherwise, his last five, he has looked much more competent as a pitcher. So, Mike, if you can get 5-6 innings a night and get 2-3 runs, no more than that allowed each night from a guy like Aaron Nola, you could argue that could be a big deal for this team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, what we all have to do is kind of adjust our expectations to Aaron Nola. And that's hard to do with the money that he's making, but he is a number 4 or a number 5 starter on this rotation. And to me, the only question is when Aaron Nola leaves the game, and that's probably going to be in the 5th or 6th inning on an exceptional night. It might be the 7th, but most likely it's going to be the 5th or 6th. When Aaron Nola walks up the mound and is done with a night's work, are the Phillies in position to win the game? If the answer is yes, then Aaron Nola has done his job. And that's really all you can ask for him or expect from him now. And the last 5 or 6 times he's gone out there, the answer has been yes. When he's left the game, the Phillies have either been in the lead or down a run where they can come back and possibly have a chance to win. So to me, that's the only question. When Aaron Nola walks up the mound, do the Phillies have a chance to win the game? If the answer is yes, then Aaron Nola's done his job, and that's what he's done the last 5 or 6 outings.
Of course, now the Phillies win a game, and they have tonight off. So it's like, hey, you got this big win, all these great vibes, but then you have a day off. So, I mean, the Phillies' wonky scheduling continues. Heading into the weekend, how much confidence can Mike they take that Field of Dreams magic and carry it into the upcoming weekend?
Yeah, well, it's the old saying in baseball, right? Momentum is only as good as the next day's starting pitcher. First of all, I think the Phillies needed this day off desperately. I think they had played 14 or something straight games. They needed a day off desperately. We saw what the status of their bullpen. Their bullpen was in shambles earlier in the week. So, they need a day off, and I'm sure they, appreciated although I'm sure they enjoyed their trip into Iowa. It's kind of a hectic day. They flew in the morning, flew out at night. There's a bunch of things. We saw that, they're playing catch on the field where the movie was filmed. They're eating corn dogs. There's a bunch of activities going on there. It's not just a regular game. So I'm sure they actually needed the day off. And yeah, to me, it's just a matter of their starting pitching. Last night they won because, they hit home runs and Aaron Nola pitched great. We'll see what happens Saturday. But I guess it's up to who would it be? Jesus Luzardo and Andrew Painter Saturday and Sunday in Minnesota. So, yeah, starting pitching is only momentum is only as good as your as next day's starting pitcher. And the thing that concerns me about the Phillies and the starting pitcher is not the back end of the rotation now. It's that front end of the rotation. It's Sanchez and Wheeler, who have just not been as sharp lately as they were early in the season.
You know, Mike, it's interesting because you just mentioned about who is starting this weekend versus who's starting next week. And I feel like it's like on the par for the Phillies, right? This whole entire year has been an inconsistent ball club. So it's like, why should we be surprised all of a sudden Nola and Painter are pitching better than Wheeler and Sanchez? Like that feels like that's part of the roller coaster ride, right?
Yeah, consistently inconsistent is what they've been all season long. They really haven't had a stretch. You know, I guess you could say when Mattingly first took over and they were winning a lot of games, right there. But they really haven't had a stretch where everybody's been hot, right? They haven't had one of those stretches all season. Brandon Marsh was hot, but then, JT Realmuto and Bryson Stott and Alec Boehm were struggling. And then, JT Realmuto comes around and Kyle Schwarber struggles for a couple of weeks. So, yeah, they really haven't had a stretch where they've all clicked at once. Maybe they're saving it for October. I'm sure that's kind of what they would be hoping for.
I certainly hope not. Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City joining us here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN at AC Press McGarry on the X platform. Mike, I didn't get a chance to talk to you yesterday, so I wanted to ask you about, the Sixers full schedule release, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we got to wait for Jaylen Brown versus the Celtics until November 10th, and then he don't even go back to Boston until the 21st. Like, this whole schedule feels like it was customized for LeBron James. Let's forget about the Jaylen Brown Celtics aspect.
Well, that's probably the case, but then, Jaylen Brown is a very good player, but he's not LeBron James in the publicly, right? I mean, my wife has no idea who Jaylen Brown is. Trust me. She has every idea of who LeBron James is, and she has every idea of who the New York Knicks are, who Jalen Brunson is. So that's probably why we're getting the Knicks Sixers on opening night, and why you got to wait a while for the basketball purists. Like, to me, I'd be very interested in seeing how Jaylen Brown, plays against the Celtics, what it's going to be like when he goes back to Boston and stuff like that. But I guess, LeBron James has been running the show in the NBA for a long time, so I'm not surprised that those early season matchups are centered around, LeBron James and not Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of the Sixers playing the Knicks twice before they get to the Celtics. I think that's my biggest gripe, because it's like, the Celtics-Sixers thing was a huge storyline this offseason. But, I got to wait until November to get it. And then you doesn't even go back to Boston until January. It just kind of feels like the NBA is kind of burying what could be a great storyline. Or, Mike, is it, hey, we're going to do some of these matchups until football season is done? Maybe is that part of the theory?
Yeah, that could be it. I mean, you're playing 82 games. I don't think you want to have everybody, I admit it's kind of the Knicks playing the 76ers twice so early in the season seems a little strange. But then, you get the season off to a good start. There's a lot of momentum. And then they build in some other attractive matchups as the season progresses. Look, they play 82 games. Not all 82 of them are going to be great. I think the schedule kind of is what it is. But I agree with you. The Knicks and the 76ers playing 2 times so early in the season seems to be a bit much. But hey, I bet they counter it with a 7-game series in April or May. So I don't think we'll have I think we're going to get plenty of Knicks Sixers next spring.
Knicks Sixers play twice in the first 10 days of the NBA season is what Mike McGarry and I are referring to.
Yeah. Josh, I looked at this, and this is kind of typical. The 76ers haven't had this the past couple of years, but the Knicks have had this the past couple of years. When you're kind of a high-profile team, it seems like those first 10 games that you play you're playing a great team every night. You're playing a high-powered team every night. You're not starting off with, the Utah Jazz or, some of the bottom feeders in the Eastern Conference. Those first 10 games, and I guess it's because they want to get the season off to such a great start and really capture on the attention that comes with the start of the season. If you're a good team or a high-profile team, those 10 games are going to be killer right out of the gate. And, the Knicks have had that the past couple of years, and I think the Sixers with LeBron and Jaylen Brown had that this year.
Mike, before I let you go, no Phillies on tonight. So I've been asking throughout the show, what are people going to watch tonight with no Philly sports? Now, you're not a Philly sports fan anyway. So for you, is it torturing yourself with the Mets, or do you have a good show on Netflix lined up?
You can throw a show on, you can throw Mets on there, but I'll give you a show. It actually came out this week. I'm a big Amazon Prime guy, so I got Reacher season 4, kind of a that ex-army guy roams the country saving people right and left. I'm a fan of that show, and season 4 came out this week. So I watched the first episode last night after the Field of Dreams, and tonight with a little easy baseball night, no Phillies, maybe I'll catch another episode. So Reacher season 4. Also a big fan. I'll throw you another one, Josh. The Westies, also on Amazon Prime. Outstanding show, too. So I got to see if I'm caught up on that one, too, basically.
Reacher's in my queue. Westies is not. I'll have to look in. What is Westies about?
Westies is it's a show about the Irish mob that in Hell's Kitchen in New York City in the 1990s around the building of the Javits Convention Center, and has to do with how that Irish mob interacted with the Italian mob and John Gotti and Paul Castellano. So it's a mixture of the Irish mob and the Italian mob, and it's got the guy Edmund Sweeney in it, who I think won an Academy Award, plays the boss of the Irish family. So if you like crime, drama, mob stuff, I give a big thumbs up to Westies, and also a big thumbs up to Reacher too.
All right, there we go. A couple TV recommendations from Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City, AC Press McGarry on the X platform, and he'll be back with us on Monday after the weekend to recap it all here on the Sports Bash. Mike, go enjoy a Reacher, all right?
I will, Josh. You can't live by sports alone, Josh. Occasionally, you got to have some other entertainment, right? There you go.
Exactly. And I listen, I got Reacher on my queue list too. It's just I haven't even started season 4 or 3 or whatever it is right yet. So, but I'll get to it. I'll get to it eventually. Good stuff from Mike McGarry here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. I was saying a little bit earlier with Bob Wankel, I got so many shows on my queues between Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Plus. It's just so much to try to keep up with everything. And I'm the kind of person where I love to finish something before I start something else. Like I've made the mistake too many times of to start watching a season or a show, and then I get distracted by something else. And then I have multiple shows, seasons unfinished. So I've been trying to make it so that, okay, I'm not starting anything new until I finish something else. Like I'm not going to pile on more and more and more. It's like with my audiobooks. I'm not going to have like 5 audiobooks halfway read. No, I'm going to finish one before I start another one, unless it's absolutely necessary for me to start one. So that's at least my perspective. Maybe I'm the crazy one, but I'm not starting Reacher. I'm not starting Tires on Netflix until I finish a couple other things. Once I knock those items out, like for example, I finished Will Trent over the weekend. I'm finally all caught up on Will Trent. It's done. It's complete. Now I'm trying to finish Abbott Elementary. Once that's done, it's complete. Now I got 2 shows off of the, hey, there's something new for you to watch queue, and I can move on to something else without being mentally pulled in too many directions. But sports gets in the way sometimes of that. We'll get back to the Whitehorse RV text board in just a bit at 609-403-0973. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a Happy Hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash. And don't forget, tonight is the 107th edition of the South Jersey Lifeguard Championships. Billy Schwein, Jack Brooks, Dan Adams, and the gang are all going to be down there in Wildwood. Sorry, not Wildwood, Avalon. It's in Avalon because Avalon's won the last two South Jersey Lifeguard Championships. They will be on the beach bringing you all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
O'clock hour of the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. Looking for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, coming up in the next hour, we have the Phillies Fastball with Oscar Budejen. Talk some more Phillies with him. And we'll circle back to some of the NFL conversation in the next hour as well. A couple of texts have come in that I haven't gotten to yet at 69403-0973 on the White Horse RV text board. White Horse RV centers in Williamstown and Galloway. Your RV adventure starts here. Steven EHT says, Jalen Hurts is on his way to having a Hall of Fame career. What he's done has simply been incredible. Not sure what else you want. He wins every game. Well, Steve, I think that, it's not me. It's the fact that we live in a world where you hand them a bag of money and they say the bag of money is too heavy. That's what we're talking about here. I'm not at fault. I'm not faulting Jalen Hurts. It's the fact we live in a world that Jalen Hurts could be the best quarterback of all time physically, but someone was still complaining they can't throw the ball over the middle of the field. I made the comment to Mike Sando a couple weeks ago here on 973 ESP. He does the quarterback tiers for the Athletic. And I said, Jalen Hurts, if he wins another championship, his career might start lining up like a Troy Aikman. And, he got to push back on me. And he said, look, Troy Aikman was an elitely talented quarterback drafted number one overall. And I understand that. But it doesn't change the fact that resume is resume. No one is going to the Hall of Fame just based on physical ability. If that was the case, Jeff George would be in the Hall of Fame. Vinny Testaverde would be in the Hall of Fame. Randall Cunningham would be in the Hall of Fame. Dante Culpepper would be in the Hall of Fame. And that's the problem with a lot of these quarterback debates. Your physical talent has zero reflection on your ability to do the job on the field. Talent only gets you so far. What's the old saying? Hard work beats talent every time, and talent doesn't work hard. Jalen Hurts has an opportunity to maximize who he is. Meanwhile, just Herbert's playing with his girlfriend at practice. It's not right. We'll work on that one. Oscar Budejen joining us for his next on 973 ESPN.
of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, 97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Josh Hennig, affiliate for Mike Gill, hanging out with you on a happy hour Friday edition of the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Streaming live on YouTube and X at 973 ESPN. And as promised, it is time for today's Phillies Fastball, brought to you by Phightin Social, the place to go for every Phillies game on their 20 big screen TVs while you enjoy great food and drink. I'd actually go there and watch the Eagles and the Phillies tomorrow. You get the Phillies on one screen, the Eagles preseason on the other screen at Phightin Social. Facebook page for upcoming events, information, and specials. And of course, Sports Bash Mike Gill was there all summer long for Phillies watch parties. Go check out Phightin Social. What's on Phightin at? In Phightin. Phillies last night, Field of Dreams, they shined. So we're going to get into, was it a one night only, or was it we can bottle this up and carry this into the weekend? Oscar Budejen is back for Phillies Fastball today on 97.3 ESPN. Oscar, welcome in. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. And even better after last night. I mean, finally, Judge, we get a big win. That was a very badly. I mean, we needed badly that win. And look, I think the most important thing about last night was Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber doing his magic. When Kyle Schwarber is the most important hitter on this team, and when this guy does his thing, this team wins games. I mean, it's as simple as that. And yesterday, hopefully this is the wake-up call he needed. He has not been healing well over the last few weeks, and hopefully he gets it going. And believe me, we're going to need this guy the rest of the way to be able to win. They have one of those wild card spots, because I don't think we can catch up to the Braves at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Schwarber has been, not just this year, but the last couple of years, he has been arguably one of the most important players on this team. And it feels like when he gets going, Oscar, the rest of the lineup kind of falls in line, right? It feels like the rest of Oscar, even Trey Turner had a hit last night. I mean, everybody but Real Muto had a hit last night, but it all started with that Schwarber leadoff home run.
Yeah, I mean, look, if he's going to hit leadoff, and that's a big question. I was in a podcast this morning with some of the guys that I respect the most in the Hispanic world, talking about baseball. They still believe that Arraez should be hitting either one or two on this lineup. And it's an interesting question you're going to ask. I mean, to me, I'll give it another week or so, and I think we're going to have to make an assessment. Is it the right thing to do for this lineup, or should we move Schwarber maybe to fourth, or maybe Turner to fourth and Schwarber? You can hit Schwarber, Arraez, Harper, Turner. You can hit Arraez, Schwarber, Turner, or any of those things. I do believe. Look, Arraez is a guy that gets on base. I know he has a huge average with runners in the scoring position throughout his entire career. Let's see. I'll give it another week of this experiment, and then we're going to have to make a decision. We need Arraez hitting at full cylinder. He got 3 hits yesterday.
Yeah, I think that Arraez, I don't think Arraez in the 4-hole is him the problem, right? It's sure. It's the other 8 guys, because we know Arraez is a contact hitter. You know, he's a guy who doesn't, where he is in the lineup is he's going to do what he's going to do. It's everybody else in the lineup, you know, Harper and his complaints about where he gets in the lineup, you know, Trey Turner, apparently we got to be all sensitive about his feelings all the time. So it's like, you know, the rest of the lineup seems to be, well, what are they going to do when you put them in a different spot?
Look, as I mentioned, I mean, I'm willing to give it another week. Let's hope he continues to hit at this pace. We need guys to get him. Part of the challenge you have is when Schwarber comes in and gets hot like this, you don't have anybody on base. I mean,
Right.
yesterday he had March on in third base. I mean, when he hit the 2-run homer, but normally a lot of his home runs are solo home runs. And I get that having a lineup when you have to face as your first hitter, Kyle Schwarber, I mean, he creates panic. Believe me, he creates panics on the other team because this guy is as pure a hitter as you will find in all of baseball. I mean, but the question is, he had 37 home runs and 72 RBIs. Harper has 25 home runs and 72 RBIs. I mean, look, we need as much production as we can get, and we're gonna have to think creatively. Hopefully, the other thing that I saw yesterday, Brandon March, he went 2 for 2 with a home run. I like what I saw from Brandon yesterday. Hopefully, this is the beginning of another streak for him. He's been hitting awful the last few weeks.
I've been asking everybody all day, Oscar, if Brandon March wasn't too busy talking to Hunter Pence, would he have caught that home run?
No. I mean, look, I've been in situations like that, and that what you see on television is not reality. That ball is too far away.
Okay.
I mean, it's too far away. Absolutely not. He would not have caught out to that ball.
I mean, I'm just wondering, maybe if he wasn't distracted by the love fest between him and Hunter Pence, would he maybe got a different angle on it? But you're saying it was just too far
back. It was too far back. I mean, it was probably, it would have been the bleachers, he would probably gone on row 4 or something like that. It was not on row 1 or 2, or maybe 1 that you can catch a baseball like that. But it was further behind him.
I'm just asking, a lot of people are wondering.
I get it. I mean, look, the baseball angles many times are deceiving. When you play the game for a long time, you get it. And that ball was way back. I mean, he could not have caught out to that ball.
Oscar, there's a reason why they took me out of the outfield, okay? My depth perception is shot. When I played baseball, they moved me to catcher because the ball is coming right at me. I can catch that.
I get it, man. I get it. Look, it was too far. I mean, that's from my angle and being. I mean, I play primarily in the infield. I play third and short, but I've also played some center field when I was growing up. And believe me, that ball, in my opinion, was too far in the back.
By the way, what did you think of the Netflix broadcast presentation?
I thought it was really good. I thought it was. Look, it's the whole idea of the Field of Dreams is a theater. It's kind of creating kind of a movie theater type of experience, and I do believe Netflix did a really, really nice job. I like a lot of the shots. With the drones and all of that. I like the show. I really thought they did it. Not necessarily the graphics during the game. There were I would call top notch, but I thought the production quality was really, really out of this league.
Yeah, for me, I feel like Netflix has come a long way from the debacle that was the Giants game to start the season. That was an absolute dumpster fire.
I think I thought that was a movie. I think there was a movie called Earthquake. I mean, it could have been part of the movie Earthquake there in San Francisco. There,
what 1989 all over again?
Yeah, I did not like that initial. They overdid it. Trying to recreate New York and trying to recreate San Francisco, to me, it was too much.
Although I did enjoy the post game, they had Rizzo interviewing Schwarber. I know some people thought it was kind of cringy, but I enjoyed it because they're former teammates, so it kind of made sense for them to mess with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. The corn dog joke. I don't know if that's the best joke that I've heard, but I mean, Rizzo is not a very good teller of jokes. So. But look, it was great. I mean, you have to give it to the team. I mean, the team did what it needed to do. It started fast, then put the pedal. That second home run by Schwarber, which should have been a ball caught, put that game 4-5 zip, and then it was. I mean, it was very hard for a team like Minnesota that has been struggling to come back. So it was a huge win for the Phillies. The Phillies needed this after playing so bad in St. Louis. So we needed this badly. And let me tell you, I mean, it's either now or never for the Phillies. They're playing 2 games in Minnesota. Then we play Miami at home, St. Louis at home. Very similar. For example, one of the games is going to be Nola against Alcantara against the Marlins here. Then Luzardo against Dobbins. then Painter against Palante, which beat us the other day, and then Sanchez against Leahy. So it's coming. And then we got to play Seattle, that is desperate. Then we play the Angels, and then the end of this season is rough. We got to play 3 games in Arizona. Then we play at home against the Braves, 4 games against the Braves. Then we play Houston. Then we play Atlanta, in Atlanta. Washington, that is no joke. We play 2 games in Washington, believe it or not. Then we play 4 games in New York, and then we end up the season playing against Milwaukee and Tampa. This is this is the easiest part of the schedule, so we better get going right now. And I'm hoping the Field of Dreams win kind of was a spark for this team to, and particularly Schwarber. I'm telling you, how Schwarber hits is how this team is going to win. Look at the excitement in the dugout once he hit the home run. I mean, you can see it. I mean, this guy is a spark plug of this team. Kyle Schwarber is the key. What was the only game we won last year against the Dodgers? The huge home run by Schwarber to right field.
Oscar Budejen joining us for Phillies Fastball today on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. There's a name you just mentioned a moment ago, Oscar, that we got to circle back to, and that's Aaron Nola. Vintage Nola last night. I know it was only 5 innings, but you look at 4 of his last 5 starts, he is starting to look like the guy you gave $140 million to. You give me 5-6 innings, you only allowed 2 to 3 runs or no more than that. You know, that's a quality start for this team that needs more quality starts from their pitching. And I would argue if that's the Nola we're going to see every 4 days moving forward, Oscar, I think this team is definitely going to lock down the wild card spot.
Location and his ability to hide or show the curve, the knuckle curve, that it seems like falling in at the last minute from being a strike to going down. It is the key to Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola, I mentioned it yesterday, 6 out of the last 7 starts, it allowed 3 or less runs. Yesterday is the 7th out of 8 starts. It's 3 or less runs. So Aaron Nola is not the issue here. It's been our hitting when Nola pitches. That has been the big issue. Hopefully the spark yesterday from Kyle Schwarber can get us going. I mean, tomorrow I know Painter is going to be pitching, so that's going to be interesting. Luzardo and Painter of the next 2 starts, and it's going to be interesting what's going to happen the rest of the way. To be honest with you,
you know, from your experience, because you know you've seen
Luzardo and Painter. Luzardo against Pearls and Painter against Kramer, the ex-pitcher of the Orioles. That's how they're going to finish the series against Minnesota.
For you, when you've watched Nola over the years, do you think is it a confidence thing, you think, for him? Do you feel like he's found confidence now? Like, what do you think the reason is that he is kind of rounded back into form?
I mean, look, one thing that we've been screaming in Phillies Fastball since the beginning of the year, Nola needed to reinvent himself. He cannot depend on his fastball anymore. His fastball is not fast enough. I mean, he doesn't throw hard enough. And the other thing, his fastball doesn't have the movement that is required to be able to do things the right way here. Now the Cardinals are winning. The Cubs are beating the St. Louis Cardinals. I think it's 3-0 now the score. 3 or 4-0 is now the score. So somebody just hit a home run. Oh, it was Suzuki that hit that home run. So that's good news because we can get the Cards out of the way. I mean, the Cards are, believe it or not, they're like a couple games, 2.5 games behind us. So if we any loss that we can get the Cards to lose, I mean, it's good news for the Phils.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's it's a final 3-0 final. Cubs taking out the Cardinals. So definitely some good news. Yeah, Cubs, keep winning. You keep winning. You keep doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to catch up to them. So they're 6.5 games above us. Look, it's interesting. I mean, the races right now are really, really interesting, and that's one thing that we need to start. I mean, talking. In my opinion, the National League is probably a 2-team race between the Phillies and the Diamondbacks for that last spot. I do believe the Pirates are playing one of the best baseball in all of MLB. I thought the general manager came in at the last minute, and they got Robbie Ray and Casey Mize taking everybody out. I thought the Phillies were going after Casey Mize. We couldn't get them. So we couldn't get Robbie Ray. We couldn't get Casey Mize. We couldn't get Miley from Atlanta. And take a look at something that is even more interesting. And I don't think people talk about this enough. Look at the Braves, what the Braves did at the deadline. So the Braves had Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas hits left-handed pitching. Guess what the Phillies have? The 2 out of the 3 pitchers that we're going to throw against them, they're left-handed pitching in Luzardo and Sanchez. Look at the other thing. They go out and acquire Suter, another lefty in the bullpen, and then a starting pitcher that could supplement a lot of the issues they're having in Miley, a right-handed pitcher. So, look, Atlanta did what they needed to do, and to a certain extent, there are people that are telling me that they blocked them from getting Lane Thomas and probably Miley, which could have been another acquisition for us as a 5th starter. So, look, it is what it is. This is not going to be easy. To me, the bats need to wake up. I do believe in Wheeler, even though Wheeler has not been pitching well in the last 4 outings. I do believe in Wheeler. I believe in Sanchez. I believe in Luzardo. And the other big thing, the big question for us is, can the big hitters, the Trey Turners, the Harpers, and the Schwarbers come up and hit at the right time in October? And then the second big question for us is, can our bullpen, particularly the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th inning, potentially, those guys that are going to be pitched there, can they pitch well enough to give the game to Durant so we can win it?
Yeah, for those who are watching on YouTube and next, we pulled up the standings for everybody to look at, just getting a visual of it. Phillies right now half a game ahead of the Diamondbacks, 2.5 ahead of the Marlins. Now, thanks to their loss, Cardinals are 3.5 behind. So that's kind of like the main group there. Padres, Phillies, Diamondbacks, Marlins, Cardinals. And as you said, Oscar, the Phillies have an opportunity to maybe bury some of these guys before they get to September to make it a little easier for them.
Yeah, and look, particularly, I mean, when you start looking, and I know the Phillies have 39 games left in their calendar. This weekend, Arizona goes to play in Atlanta. So tonight you have Brandon Path, which have been pitching really well, and that's the guy, I have him on nightmares. Remember that 7th game in the National League Championship Series? That's a guy, Brandon Path, the one that pitched that game. He's going against Chris Sale. So Atlanta can do us a favor by winning 2 out of 3 out of these guys, and if we can win the next 2 games, then establish a little bit of distance, because I do think the Padres are going to be the second team in this wild card. They're playing too well. And then the other thing, they got the depth in pitching that they did not have in the beginning of the year. So they're going to be much, much better.
Yeah, the Padres have really benefited from Tatis, heating up the last couple of months. I mean, when he had a rough start to the year himself, did Fernando, and when he heated up, that really you saw the Padres offense kind of kick off. So like some of those stats, the runs scored, like that's kind of skewed for the Padres, because I would say it's almost like 70% of those runs were scored the last 2 months.
Yeah, I mean that's a reality. And Judge, you allow me, you can go this weekend to Foley's, the Phillies Sports Shop on 22nd and South Street, and you'll find all the great merchandising from the Phillies, particularly for every one of our World Series or postseasons. You'll find it. He even has T-shirts now with King James and all the great stuff. So go to 22nd and South, or you can always go to FoleyOnSouth.com. If you spend $75, you'll get free shipping. My friend John Foley is there. He's the owner of the store, and everything that we can do to support those great Phillies fans. I mean, we'll always do it.
I think people want to know, does he have the Field of Dreams stuff over there?
He probably have Field of Dreams stuff. I haven't been at the store because I'm actually down in Florida doing some work down here, but I have not been at the store in the last couple of weeks, but I'm sure he has Field of Dreams stuff.
The only thing that got shown more than corn last night was the Field of Dreams merch on the broadcast. They showed that a lot on the broadcast last night.
I mean, I like the shirt a lot. I do like the shirt, the jersey that they wore. I really like the jersey. The jersey's pretty cool. I mean, the Phillies jersey, I'll definitely get one of those. But look, the Phillies, the destiny is in their hands. The destiny is in their hands. Look, the calendar is there. We just need the big bats need to wake up, and we need Wheeler and Sanchez to do a much better job than the way they've been doing over the last couple of games.
Absolutely. Oscar Budejen, Phillies Fastball. He'll be back next week here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Oscar, enjoy the weekend.
Appreciate you, Judge. See you next week. Take care.
Absolutely. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget, Phillies Fastball brought to you by Ventnor Social. It's the place to go for every Phillies game on their 20 big screen TVs while enjoying great food and drink. Visit their Facebook page for up-to-date info and specials. Like I said, Phillies tomorrow, Eagles at the same time. Maybe you want to have it on dueling TVs. You can do it at Ventnor Social on Ventnor Avenue it's in Ventnor. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a happy hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN. We'll check back in on the text board on the other side. We have text coming in at 609-403-0973 on the White Horse RV text board. Also messages coming in on YouTube. Just follow at 973 ESPN on YouTube next to comment during the Sports Batch each and every day on the 973 ESPN YouTube channel and on X as well. Plus, coming up, what did Brian Baldinger say is the biggest key for the Philadelphia Eagles? He was on with Rich Eisen show earlier today on 97.3 ESPN. We'll play for you. So what Baldy had to say coming up next on the Sports Bash.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And if you're not down with that, we got two words for you.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
You look at, Malata. I mean, they're a human eclipse out there. Not to mention Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter inside. Like, Jahad Campbell, he really wasn't a factor last year, but he's bigger at linebacker. Reek Woolen is a Pacific Manta at left corner. Like his wingspan, Rich, but then his break on the ball is elite. Like that was a weakness on this team last year, was the left corner position. I think Reek upgrades it. So I'm with Maurice on that. Like they are a massive team. Not to mention Landon Dickerson. You just go through the guys right here. They go through an airport, they're going to get your attention.
That was Brian Baldinger earlier today on the Rich Eisen Show, heard on 97.3 ESPN. All to give a little breakdown. The Eagles' size. The Eagles do have some phenomenal athletes inside, but everyone wants to know, is that going to pay off? Is Philadelphia having the beast up front, having the monsters on that offensive line, all that defensive line, is all of that going to matter? Well, Ryan Baldinger seems to think so. With more of his thoughts coming up in a moment. Of course, you guys can text the text board, the White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0973. And this hour of the Sports Bash is being brought to you by Cross County Connection, reminding you that whenever you're behind the wheel or on a bike, safety starts with following the law. New Jersey bicyclists riding at night must use white front light and red rear light visible from 600 feet away. Drivers, remember the safe passing law. Give at least 4 feet when passing people walking or biking, or slow down until it's safe. Share the road, save a life. This message from New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety and Cross County Connection. Learn more at driveless.com. So Brian Baldinger was on with Rich Eisen earlier today. He had some interesting comments about the state of the Eagles offense. Baldinger was in Eagles camp a couple times already this week, and he made an interesting comment, I thought, about both Mannion and Hurts. So let's get to part one of that. Here is Brian Baldinger, NFL Network's own, with Rich Eisen earlier today on 97.3 ESPN.
Sean Mannion has a paper-thin resume. He's cognizant of it, but he's very bright, and he's very definitive about what he wants. And for Jalen Hurts to go back under center where he starts practice every day, just taking snaps from the centers and just working on his footwork, like he is bought in. He looks good. He looks leaner. He looks faster, and he's committed.
I like what he said there, that he's committed. And he talked about how these guys are cognizant of, hey, it's a new coordinator, a guy without a lot of experience. And I think it's so important to make sure that we remember that, last year, I don't think the Eagles were fully committed to Patullo being the OC. I think some of the guys liked the idea of Patullo being the OC because of the fact that Patullo was well-liked in the building. He was Sirianni's boy. He got along with a lot of the receivers. But I don't think they were ever fully committed to Patullo being the OC. Kellen Moore kind of had to force himself on everybody, and it ended up benefiting everybody by the end of the season and for the playoff run. Shane Steichen was very well liked in the building, and that's part of the reason why they had the success they did with him. I think Hurts liked Brian Johnson, but Johnson wasn't really ready for the job, and that's why it didn't work in 2023. This feels kind of like an amalgamation of the Steichen and Kellen Moore eras, where you have a guy who has experience as a former quarterback in terms of communicating coming into the organization, but it's like Steichen, where he's bringing with him an offense that guys can get on board with. And Baldy went on to say that this was going to benefit guys more than people realize.
Anybody that's been around Jalen Hurts, and I know you have, Rich, going back to his days, in high school, like he's coachable. They needed to upgrade the position. It was not good last year. And I think this is going to be good for Jalen Hurts. I think this is a good offense for him to be in. I think putting Saquon 8 yards deep and letting him really read the holes and feel the linebackers and the big runs I think will be coming. This offense needed to be better all the way around.
I like the comment about how Hurts is practicing every day under center. Because there's been a lot of consternation about, can Hurts play under center? Well, he can play under center if he practices playing under center. I know it's a crazy concept. I know for some of you out there, you might not be able to comprehend that, some of you Hurts haters, but guess what? If you practice something enough, you get good at it. Bruce Lee said, I do not fear the man who knows 1,000 different strikes. I fear the man who has practiced one strike 10,000 times. Building on the idea that if someone practices something again and again and again, it becomes habit and it becomes easier for them to execute it again and again. I don't think it's a coincidence that Hurts is constantly playing under center in training camp. I think for Philadelphia, they know that they need to make sure that Hurts is 100% ready for what is going to be asked of him in the season. And what's going to happen in the season is they're going to need him to play under center because that is the primary operator of the offense that Mannion wants to run. Remember, Nick Sirianni, he did an interview with NFL Network. It was with Brian Baldinger when he was there. And he made the comment about why they hired Sean Mannion. Now, I want you to hear Sirianni's answer because he reveals something that he probably didn't want to admit. But he revealed something about the new OC that I think tells us a lot about why they're playing Hurts under center so much. Why, as Brian Baldinger says, this is going to benefit Saquon tremendously. Why they had to change the offense from what you saw, which was a dumpster fire last year, to this new offense this year.
I wanted somebody with just conviction. It wasn't necessarily a system I was after. It was more like somebody that had conviction and had confidence and really was an expert with what they were going to teach. And Sean, I remember it was a long interview day. We didn't really have to prepare ourselves because Sean was so energetic during that we had to bring him back for another one. And obviously he impressed us so much. We hired him in this role, and he's doing a great job. Just tremendous work ethic, really stood out among a bunch of really good candidates, expert in every position on offense, not just, hey, he played quarterback for a long time.
Some very interesting insights there from Sirianni, basically explaining we didn't hire him because of the scheme he was bringing in. They hired him because of how knowledgeable he was about the scheme he was in. You heard Baldinger talk about how Madden is aware that he doesn't have a bunch of play calling experience. So he's putting in the time and work with Jalen Hurts to make sure the quarterback and him are on the same page. And as Nick Ferguson told us, the 10-year NFL veteran safety, earlier on the Sports Bash, Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a happy hour Friday on 97.3 ESPN. Nick Ferguson told us, you throw interceptions in practice to make sure you don't throw them in the real games. You get the mistakes out of the way in training camp, so in the regular season, you can excel. You heard Sirianni say, Sean Mannion knows every position, not just the position that he played. That's one of the problems that happens in sports sometimes. You have former players who become coaches in football or managers in baseball or whatever. They're so hyper familiar with only what they know. They only know how to do their job. They don't know how to do anybody else's job. So then when it gets to coaching, you hear guys like Don Mattingly say, oh, I don't really know much about pitching. I leave it to Caleb Cotham. But then it's the same Don Mattingly who makes questionable pitching decisions. So which is it? Do you know or do you not know? Is it Caleb's fault or is it your fault? So for Mannion, Nick Sirianni says he knows every position. He was more knowledgeable about the scheme than anyone else was about their scheme. You heard Brian Baldinger say how intelligent Sean Mannion is. That's why this new offense is going to work. It's not going to work because Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback on planet Earth. Listen, I get it. He is not Patrick Mahomes, but no one else is either. Okay? We act like Hurts has to be an elite quarterback for this Eagles team to go forward. No. This team has won two Super Bowl championships without having the best quarterback in the NFL. Why? Because teams win championships, not individuals. And that's where we circle back to the White Horse RV text board. We'll be talking throughout the day about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense. 609-403-0973. Nick and Galloway chimed in earlier in the show and said, when Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, etc. fail, they get excuses like the defense let them down or a terrible offensive line play. With Jalen Hurts, it's, the defense carried him or he couldn't win with that offensive line. He's the only quarterback who gets excuses for winning. It's okay to admit that other quarterbacks need other things too. But when Hurts has those same excuses, it somehow is a negative. Nick and Galloway, it's 100% right. I've said for as long as I've been at 97.3 ESPN, and some people out there hate when I say this, but it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Matthew Stafford, whoever you want to pick. If the O-line doesn't block and the receivers don't catch, your quarterback is useless. Now, there are some quarterbacks who can elevate average players. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees. There's only a handful of those guys. Most players need other talent around them. If I had $1 for every time Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen had a receiver drop a pass, I'd be rich. You don't think if Donovan McNabb wasn't throwing to Todd Pinkston and James Thrash and Reggie Brown that he might have better stats? Of course he would. We know. We saw him play with T.O. for 1 year. So Nick and Galloway is right. We make these excuses for other quarterbacks. Not we, but the people make excuses for other quarterbacks. But those excuses don't work for Jalen Hurts. 609-403-0973. James in Delaware says, people want flashy wins and 4,000-yard passers and 40 passing touchdowns and a Super Bowl appearance every year. Yeah, they want their cake and eat it too. It's another way of saying it, James in Delaware. I totally get it. But it's unreasonable. It's absolutely unreasonable, some of these expectations that people have. Stephen EHT also chimed in earlier about the Phillies. He says there's approximately zero chance Alec Bohm is back next year. The time has passed on Alec Bohm. Yeah, I think the Alec Bohm, the whole Alec Bohm experiment is over. One of the things I've criticized the Phillies for, the Eagles get this right. The Phillies don't. The Eagles, and you heard Adam Caplan bring it up earlier. Howie Roseman will say, you know what? Stevie and Taylor pick didn't work. I'm going to cut him. But Howie drafted him in the third round. Doesn't matter. Can't win with him. Can't do it. By the way, bonus points. Anyone knows who I just quoted there. Howie Roseman looks at a player and says, I don't care where you drafted him. I can't win with him. Can't do it. Got to move on. The Phillies say, we drafted this guy. We invested all these years in the minor leagues into him. It's got to work. It better work. We hope it works. We're just going to keep running Alec Bohm and Dominic Brown out there again and again. We're hoping for the best. Phillies hope for the best, while the Eagles say, you know what? This ain't working. We got to get somebody else to do this job. It's funny how that works. Eagles got 2 championships in the last 10 years. Phillies have been to one World Series. I'm just saying. It's part of the calculus of how to win a championship. You got to admit when you're wrong. You got to pivot. Jeff from Summers Point chimes in and says, Josh, there will be no bad talk about Todd Pinkston. He's my favorite Eagle wide receiver. Still wears jersey this day. Otherwise, good, the great show, Josh. Yeah, sorry. I'll let you, you and Todd Pinkston can hang out, bro. Listen, I'm a defense first guy. I always have been. I played defense when I was a kid, partly because I couldn't catch a football for my life, depending on it. I actually got better at catching football as I got older, but when I was younger, I had bad hand catching mechanics. So put me on defense because I could run. So they said, you know what, you can't catch the ball, but maybe you can stop somebody else from catching the ball. So, yeah, I always looked at guys like Pinkston and all those other guys. It's just so. And listen, I've always had the philosophy, if your job is to catch the ball and the ball is on your hands, you better catch it. So, yeah, I was part of the contingent of Eagle fans who would say Todd Stinkston, James Trash, Reggie Who. Yeah, I was part of one of those people. I'll admit it. I was one of those fans. I ripped every Eagles receiver. Then they finally got T.O. And then he was gone. And I was so happy when they drafted Deshaun Jackson. And then Chip Kelly got rid of him. And I was like, come on, man. I mean, Chip Kelly chose Riley Cooper over Deshaun Jackson. Oh, man, the memories. This is all before. Listen, I said it the other day. Since 2016, the Philadelphia Eagles have gone next level in this city. And they have put every other team in their dust. The second coming of Howie Roseman 2.0, whatever way you want to call it, from 2016 to now, the Eagles have blown away the Phillies, the Sixers, and the Flyers to such a wild level. It's amazing the other teams have taken so long to figure out that they better put up or shut up. So I said earlier today, the Phillies, they don't get some consistent winning, they are going to be the forgotten stepchild when September comes around. This is an Eagles fan base, first and foremost. Everybody comes second. I'm telling you right now, when LeBron and those Sixers report to training camp, when those Flyers report to their camp, and the Phillies, if they're still, limping their way to the postseason, people are going to bail on them. Josh Hennig, filling in for Mike Gill, here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube and X at 973 ESPN. Coming up, do you remember Happy Hour Friday picks? All of that and more still to come on the Sports Bash. And don't forget, coming up in about 14 minutes from now, Billy Schweim and the crew down in Avalon. They will bring you the South Jersey Lifeguard Championships coming up tonight on 97.3 ESPN. I know it's Dan Adams, Jack Brooks, Eric Wolf. I think Tom McCann is with them as well. So it's going to be a jam-packed broadcast for the 107th edition of the South Jersey Lifeguard Championships coming up in about 13 minutes on 97.3 ESPN.
Back. Catch Philadelphia Eagles preseason football as the Eagles get ready for the 2026 season. Traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens tomorrow night. Pre-game coverage starts at 6 with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick calling all the action starting at 7.
The catch is made by Henry, and he is just bounced down by Cooper Budejen.
What a great tackle by Cooper Budejen.
This is South Jersey's radio home of the Philadelphia Eagles. 97.3 ESPN.
I scream. You scream. We all scream. Because Wendy's famous small classic Frosty is just $1 for a limited time. More screaming, happy screaming, summer screaming, dollar small classic Frosty screaming! But please don't scream in the drive-thru. It hurts the employees.
All right, let's wrap the show. Happy Hour Friday picks. Do you remember and more? Josh Hennig hanging out with you. One more final segment on 97.3 ESPN. Do you remember? All right, I got some good ones for you guys. So on this day in 2004, in the first event of the 2004 Olympics, Michael Phelps won his first Olympic medal, taking gold and setting the world record in the 400-meter individual medley. In other words, the legend of Michael Phelps was born on this day in 2004, on this day in 2008. In the sixth inning, the White Sox became the sixth team in MLB history hit 4 consecutive home runs in an inning, with home runs from Jim Thome, Paul Konerko, and Alexi Ramirez, followed by Juan Uribe. 5 more teams have done it since the White Sox 2008, though. Speaking of Jim Thome, on August 15th in 2011, which is tomorrow, Jim Thome became the 8th player to reach 600 home runs in his second game of the year. Second of the game. The home run came against Tigers' Daniel Schlereth, son of Mark Schlereth. How about that little factoid for you? That was on this day on August 15th back in 2011. Also, August 15th, 2008, Nasir Lukin and Sean Johnson won gold and silver, respectively, at the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, becoming the first U.S. woman to go 1-2 all around in Olympic Games history. Finally, also in 2008 Olympics on August 16th, which will be this Sunday, the legend of Usain Bolt was born as a Jamaican sprinter, won the 100-meter final of Beijing, a world record of 9.69 seconds crossed the finish line sideways, having already begun his celebration, which, in other words, the time would have actually been faster if he would have kept running. That's your Do You Remember for this weekend. All right, some happy hour Fridays for you. A couple of picks coming on the text 4-6-9-403-0973. Chris chimes in and says, happy hour Friday. Peach Ring Sour Ale by Community Beer Works, 6.8 ABV, right out of the refrigerator after work. Sounds pretty darn good to me. A couple of the brews I've had to beat recently. I was Schoolie from Slack Tie Brewing Company. I'm a huge fan of Schoolie. Not a high ABV. It's a very smooth summertime brew. Also, Last Minute Shanty over at Ludlam Island Brewing. Now, I think that they're running low on the Last Minute Shanty, so you better get into Ludlam before they completely run out of the latest batch of Last Minute Shanties. Those are two of my brew recommendations for Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Busy show today. Thanks, everybody who tuned in and listened. Thanks to Oscar Budejen. Thanks to Nick Ferguson. What a great conversation that was with him earlier today, the former NFL safety for 10 years. Great stuff from Bob Wankel, Adam Caplan, Mike McGarry. And again, thanks to all of you who texted the White Horse RV text board, who chimed in on the YouTube channel at 973 ESPN. I will be back on tomorrow following the Locker Room with Billy Schwein for the latest edition of Hanging with Hennig, 12 to 3 p.m., following the Locker Room with Billy Schwein on 97.3 ESPN. Speaking of Billy Schwein, the 107th edition of the Lifeguard, South Jersey Lifeguard Championships is coming in next on 97.3 ESPN FM. I'm Josh Hennig. Have a great weekend, everybody.